So I think everybody's pretty much seen the allegations and everything against Rich. If you haven't, I would suggest to just check our Twitter. And, you know, we've obviously addressed this ourselves. This came to our attention yesterday, and as soon as we pretty much found out and, you know, looked into it and saw what was going on, we had Rich resign from the org, and Rich is no longer a part of OTK, effective yesterday. The reason I'm going to be talking about it
Hey, do you remember during the pandemic when they said that the technology used for vaccine passports would never be normalised and utilised in ordinary situations and become part of a social credit score system where everyone would have a digital ID and CBDCs would become normalised? Well, guess what? That was a lie. It is happening. Hello there, you 6 billion awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage towards truth and freedom. The mainstream media are not your friends. They want you dumb, dead, and in chains. Look around you. Open your eyes. You don't need me to tell you that. Turn on your TV. Look at what they're telling you. They're telling you that you need to give up your power and allow power to be continually centralized. They're trying to turn us against one another continually. We have a spiritual challenge on our hands as well as a political one. It can be handled in our own hearts, but it also has to be handled out in the world, in the streets also. In this incarnation, what we are addressing is the introduction of digital IDs and central banking digital currencies. Both things that, I don't know, needn't necessarily be awful, but you can bet your ass they will be. We'll get into this in more detail. Let's go. Last month, The Times reported that governments globally are on the precipice of major adoption of digital ID. The European Union is preparing for the 2024 release of its digital ID wallet, which would enable EU residents to store digital identity credentials such as national ID, driving licence and bank account details. Let's have a look at them announcing this plan to turn us all into data and manageable, literal, humanless, faceless, leaderless drones.
Und aus diesem Grund wird die Kommission demnächst eine sichere europäische digitale Identität vorschlagen. Eine, der wir vertrauen und die Bürgerinnen und Bürger überall in Europa nutzen können.
You can do anything, as long as we permit it, as long as there's not some lockdown, as long as you've never thought or believed anything that we don't agree with. So technology is of course not necessarily bad, it's simply a tool. What we're concerned about is the ongoing centralisation of data and the ability of unelected bodies like the European Union or various international organisations that implement the goals. We've seen this happen in the last couple of years, having the ability to correlate data and through this concrescence of national power and global data create states that are beneficial to their agenda. We've seen it already in the last couple of years. We've seen it piloted. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist in spite of what you might read, to understand that certain sets of interests have benefited from various crises over the last couple of years and perhaps for a lot longer than that. The pandemic was hugely profitable to the wealthiest people in the world. The data is available for that. Big tech benefited, governments benefited through their ability to regulate, the pharmaceutical industry benefited. If it's a conspiracy theory, you shouldn't be able to call up data and demonstrate that it's 100% true. So do you think this technology will be in the same hands, the same sets of interests, is going to be ultimately beneficial to you for convenience, for safety, the two cudgels that are used to bludgeon you into compliance? Do you think that this is going to mean that we're so safe and everything's so convenient that it's barely worth getting up out of bed? Why don't you just stick a tube down my neck, fill me full of glucose, and I'll wait for the grave?
Alles zu tun, vom Steuerzahlen bis zum Fahrradfahren.
There you are, as usual, it's presented as convenient and amenable. And there's no doubt that having like a phone can do all sorts of stuff and being able to get into venues and all those things, they are convenient. There's pay for travel. All of these things are convenient. But what if things change? What if there are a new set of circumstances? What if there are new climate curfews, new virus lockdowns, a new government altogether that just simply decides to change things? Once you start implementing this technology, you have to have the kind of naive faith and trust that like either a lamb or an idiot would place into organisations and institutions that have not been behaving in a particularly benevolent fashion over the last few years. That's just my view. Let me know your view in the chat. The EU has picked its partners in developing the bloc's controversial digital ID wallet, and one of them is the same company that previously worked to develop the UK's official COVID pass and tracing app. Luxembourg-based net company Intrasoft. Intrasoft. It's all interwoven, it's all nice and soft. What about there? Every government that introduces vaccine certification vows that no personal information will be held beyond its necessity. But governments were far from unanimous on how long and by whom our intimate information will be held, owned or overseen. Along with IBM designers, state bureaucrats were exploring how the platform could be retrofitted to verify other types of records and credentials. Once biodata are collected and filed, according to Hamid Khan of the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, there's no delete button. In a sense, does this remind you of when Edward Snowden's revelations were made? We just didn't have an understanding of the degree to which we could be tracked, how much of our data was being captured, who had access to it. Does this not make you think also of the recent revelations of the amount of CIA and FBI involvement in platforms like Twitter and other platforms also? That they're just an interconnected, symbiotic relationship between big tech platforms and the government, that there's a shared agenda to accrue information because whether it's commercially or in order to implement state power, the acquisition of data is extremely powerful. Ultimately, they believe that we are data, that we're nothing more than information that we observe, track, and obviously, once it gets to CBDCs, centralized currencies, they're digital, controlled. The more ability to exert power they have, the more power they actually have. Not long ago, in order to counter a genuine radical movement of ordinary people, they would have to have the army on the streets. Now people can just be shut down with a button. Your ability to transact could be shut down easily and simply. I don't have that much trust in anyone in the world, let alone the organisations that we're granting it to. When biometric data, bodily attributes digitised and married to surveillance technology, both the potential for profit and the ambitions of the techno-futurists inflate without limit. The British tech firm Onfido envisions a seamless EU-wide identity verification, or IDV system, for online gambling, telemedicine, car rental, electronic voting and more. In 2020, Onfido called its Immunity Passport in development the linchpin of a new normality in a post-COVID-19 society. As is often the case, these matters are not only conspiratorial, not only are they not conjecture, the very organisations that are involved are explicitly telling you what the plan is. They're overtly saying, this is what we're going to do. And then if you counter with a question like, couldn't that be misused under certain circumstances, even your inquiry is regarded as a kind of hysteria. But how can that be hysterical if you've been alive for the last couple of years? If you're witnessing the advancing censorship on social media platforms and in mainstream media, the growing power and wealth of these big tech organisations, the inability to enact meaningful change in the political space. It's a simple observation of fact at this point. This year, the company's chief privacy officer told Biometric Update that proven immunity to the virus du jour might become a basic permission attribute. A Swedish company has introduced a vaccine certification microchip that can be implanted under the skin. This is one of those times where you can just step back and look at all of the various nodes of progression and how they might coalesce to create digital tyranny. Meanwhile, in India, India's income tax administration has warned citizens that they should link their permanent account numbers, or PANs, to their Aadhaar biometric identification numbers before April the 1st, 2023, or risk their PAN becoming non-operational. So there we are. There's an example of how it might be already happening. So it's not even a projection, it's an observation of what's happening presently. And of course, you'll be very familiar with the example of the Canadian truckers and people that donated having their bank accounts frozen. So already this technology is used. We're just discussing how it might be used, and therefore we're discussing, do you trust the institutions in power, whether they're governmental or corporate? Do you trust them? Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. If the ability to control something in India has required for multiple financial activities like creating bank accounts, depositing money, trading stocks, and buying or selling real estate. Throughout history, marginal communities that exist outside of the system have been condemned. Even in countries like mine, Britain, people that are travellers are regarded with suspicion, cynicism, and often outright racism because they simply live outside of our models of taxation and finance. Hey, what if we could just live differently? And that's regarded as, how dare you try and live differently? But actually, why shouldn't you live differently? If you want to go and live in the woods, if you want to travel around, if you want to be free, if you want to harmonise with nature, who has the monopoly on what is right? Through identity politics, people are able now to discuss, hey, I feel like this, I want to be spoken to in that way. Fantastic, that's cool. You start saying, I want to opt out of financial system, please. Good luck with those pronouns. So, this brings us to central banking digital currency. Governments and financial institutions are increasingly warming to the idea of introducing central bank digital currency. I like this idea that we could switch off the money tap. In April 2021, Rishi Sunak launched a task force on Bank of England digital currency. With the decline in the use of cash, which has been managed, and the increased prominence of cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, there has been heightened interest among policymakers about the viability of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. Now, of course, Bitcoin was widely condemned and damned in public spaces because I imagine they observed it was something they couldn't control. Hold on, what if we had our own one that we could control? Oh no, that would be alright. Well, what about all of the ecological stuff and all them other things? That don't matter now. Let's have Rishi Sunak, Boulders Grass, WEF, Goldman Sachs, leader of our country, if you're in the UK, telling us what we've got to look forward to.
Today, I'm proud to say that under the UK's presidency,
He's always in that mood, Rishi Sunak. Never seen him not in that mood. Whether he's calling up Zelensky on the phone with old Trudy Trudeau, or announcing that he's going to end our relationship with China. Doesn't matter. Good news, bad news. Sorry that I was at those parties all the while you were locked up during lockdown. That's the mood he's in. Hello. Just like a smiling puppet, which is weird because he's an autonomous being who's democratically elected. Oh no, he wasn't democratically elected.
the group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money,
You idiot.
a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins.
For a while, till we stop banknotes and coins, and then we can control you even more.
Unlike most of the digital money people use daily today, it would be issued directly by a central bank, like the Bank of England in the UK.
It's all fine. It's all gonna be fine.
And governments and central banks across the world are working together,
Sort of like they're coordinated or conspiring to do it.
looking into what having a digital currency might mean in practice.
I've got an idea what it might mean in practice.
This includes issues that people care about, such as ensuring users' money would be safe and secure,
It's gotta be safe. It's gotta be secure.
would be energy efficient,
Oh, it's gotta be but thank God. I mean, I was worried, like, the environment.
and available to everyone.
Yeah, it's got to be everyone, like the poor, the desperate, the maligned, the outsiders, and people, for example, that virulently oppose your centralised systems. They shouldn't be excluded either.
A potential CBDC could offer businesses and consumers new ways to pay in the future.
Businesses and consumers. And what's outside of that? Nothing.
It's all part of the wider story of digital innovation that has delivered benefits to millions around the world and in the UK.
Woohoo! Benefits! Benefits! What if you're on benefits? Then you're fucked. In 2021, the Bank of England called on ministers to decide whether a central banking digital currency should be programmable, ultimately giving the issuer control over how it is spent by the recipient. Tom Mutton, a director at the Bank of England, said there could be some socially beneficial outcomes from that, preventing activity which is seen to be socially harmful in some way. Depending on the mood of the day, we could just shut down any dissidents or anyone who argues or we don't like the look of. You could think of giving your children pocket money but programming the money so that it couldn't be used for sweets. Have you noticed how they talk to us like we're idiot children continually, whether it's Rishi Sunak's kindly blank stare or the metaphors and analogies that they use to help us understand how the relentless advance of a centralised new world order will be sort of beneficial for us. You're like some children, okay, and you want some sweets, I suppose. Well, yeah, because I'm a child, I don't want anything else. Well, you can't have no fucking sweets, or, for example, freedom, or the right to dissent, or to believe what you want to believe, or live a lifestyle that we haven't sanctioned. All of that, no sherbet for you, sonny boy. There is a whole range of things that money could do, programmable money, which we cannot do with the current technology. Yeah, once money's out there, people could do whatever they like, almost as if they're free. But once it's programmable money, they can do what we like, almost as if they're not free. And it's as simple as that. In spite of condemning China when it's convenient, many of our so-called democracies openly admire China and emulate them when possible. So what's going on over there? China is exploring expiration dates with its upcoming digital yuan, or DCEP, which means the currency will expire if not used in a certain time frame. So I guess they can switch off your money if you don't use it how they want you to. Let's have a look.
China is exploring expiration dates with its upcoming digital yuan, or DCEP, which means the currency will expire if not used in a certain time frame. The digital yuan is programmable to the point that the currency can be made to expire, thus forcing consumers to use it up by a certain date.
forcing consumers. Now, I'm not an economist, so I don't know whether or not having currency expire and therefore having a greater turnover expenditure is good within a particular state capitalist or state communist model. I'm not qualified to say. But once the technology exists to sort of shut down, devalue or prevent money from being spent, it's pretty easy to see how that same technology might be used to control undesirable activity or undesirable people. And with more and more protest laws being introduced and more censorship laws and more control of what they call misinformation and disinformation, if you add to that the ability to control currency, it's pretty easy to see how social credit score type systems, control of currency could lead to a situation where you're essentially in an open prison, where you're essentially a slave, where you will have freedom, but that freedom is so prescriptive that it's not really freedom at all, is it? Once they can observe your health data, your financial habits, your spending habits, your medical situation, censor you within an inch of your life and shut off your finances at the push of a button, what kind of freedom is really left? Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments.
If domestic consumption can be tightly controlled, then it's a way to not just increase the volume of consumption but to control the variance of demand for the goods China produces.
Even though this is rather a nice presentation, just notice the words like force and tightly controlled. That's what it comes down to. When this is presented to you, it will be as convenient, safe, preventing fraud, fighting crime, and you'll be an inch taller, and it's going to be great for your wedding day, and all sorts of stuff. But in effect, they don't do things unless it gives them more power or it gives their corporate partners more ability to profit. Those are the only motivations you will ever see play out. Just look at any news story in the world, basically, and you can see that playing out. That's why I'm always suspicious when they say, this is because human life is sacred, or because we want to protect this marginalised group. You think, that doesn't seem to be how you behave generally, so why are you doing it this time? There's money in it.
The digital yuan permits a new method for surveilling the population.
Also good, it's good that you can surveil them, their spending habits, and stop them spending if they're naughty.
Creating new data which can be tracked by authorities.
I mean, what about this is good news for you and your family? Creating new data that can be tracked by authorities. Whichever way you look at it, it's less power for you, more power for them, ultimately more profit for organisations that are already benefiting hugely from the advance of technology. The problem is, of course, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, technology is not, of course, bad. It's wonderful and incredible and given us miraculous results because of the ingenuity of the people that have worked on this stuff. And with the right ideology behind it, we could be creating a sort of utopia here on Earth where people work less, where we have fairer, more equal societies with less conflict, where people could live traditional or progressive lifestyles depending on their preferences, and that not every single decision that was made was used to advance the interests of centralised authority. But looking at today's presentation, it's pretty clear that whether it's social credit scoring or digital IDs or CBDC, ultimately in the wrong hands this will diminish your power and increase their power. But that's just what I think. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these, turn on the notification bell. It's the only way we can guarantee that you will see our content because the algorithm is against us. Remember, we are live every day on Rumble at these times. You can watch us there. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. More important than any of that is that you please stay free.
Yesterday, well, this is when we're in music, people are texting me, your boy got down, your boy, they took him down, they did all this. I'm like, listen, keep going. One more, right there. Click on that one, right there. Click on that one. Zoom in a little bit, okay. So I don't know exactly the details of the States West, but here's what I do know. A day after he publicly calls out one of those heroes, Greta Thunberg, they raid his place. Strange timing. Meanwhile, we haven't seen anyone from Epstein's list arrested.
Weird.
Strange. Now go to the bottom. At the bottom, I say he's loud, he pushes the envelope, he frustrates the left, he points at hypocrisy, he's duplicating young men to do the same. Having said that, if they committed a crime, the proper agencies will do what they need to do. Till then, innocent till proven guilty. So then I get invited on this Twitter Spaces with, again, the guy Mario Nufal. I think he does a fantastic job as a host. And I'm on there. And he says, so Patrick, you interviewed, you spend many hours with them. How is he on camera? How is he off camera? I said, quite frankly, I liked him more on camera than on camera. And I liked him on camera. I just liked him more off camera. He says, so what do you have to say about, all this stuff that's coming up? I said, here's a couple things you have to be very careful with. First thing you have to be very careful with is I said, as a father, anytime the school calls me telling me what my son did wrong, my natural inclination is to say, well, don't do this. Until I talk to him, I'm like, oh, shoot. You know, he kind of did it again.
How about you?
So, and by the way, you know, that it ought to be that way. You know, parents ought to, you know, have a certain level of loyalty and belief in their kids. You know, if I get a call from somebody saying what you did something, and I'm getting a call and I'm talking to the person, you and I are going to have a conversation, and then I'm going to sit there and say, listen, you know, it is what it is. Let's wait to see what's going on. Regardless of what it is, we have to know two things. Both can be right. One, I was going to Bible study years ago when I'm an atheist, and this guy's trying to convert me. I'm like, you're not going to do it. 25 years I've been an atheist. You can convert me. And I told him, I said, look, I've been in churches. I've seen pastors do this. I've seen pastors take advantage of members, rip them off with money, marriages, what they were doing on the side, smoking weed, doing drugs, having sex, and then they're claiming up there on stage that they're so mighty. He says, here's a rule number one about if you want to have a relationship with the man upstairs. If it's horizontal, you'll always be disappointed. If it's vertical, you'll never be disappointed. I said, explain that to me. He says, people are going to let you down, okay? Everybody is. You've let down your kids. You've let down your parents. At that time I don't have kids, but he's saying you've let down your parents. You know, your parents have let you down. Your sisters let you down. You've let her down. Your friends, all this stuff. None of us walk on water, okay? Just hope you don't make the big mistakes, but we don't walk on water. We all make mistakes. Don't be surprised if a hero disappoints you. That's one. So years after that, I'm working at this church. This one Assyrian guy comes to me. They want to create an Assyrian part of this church. I won't mention the guy's name. And he says, man, I will kiss the pastor's feet. He's this, he's that. He's saying this in front of 30 Assyrians in this one guy's house, Wilson. And I said, listen, never ever put that much pressure on a man to be perfect, because he's going to fall. Never give that much, you know, love and attention and accolades to a human being. Give him love. Give him respect. But you're talking as if he's God and he can't make any mistakes. He says he can't. He's never going to make mistakes. I said, listen, I don't want that kind of pressure. I said, I can't help you guys out with this request that you have. Bring it to today. You know, you have to know the people who really support this guy, they don't think he can do it. And that's unfair to him. And it's managing too much expectations for yourself. The other side, the people who can't stand, like on yesterday's Twitter Spaces, one Romanian lawyer got on. He says they're not going to let him be bailed out. He's not going to get out. They're probably going to do 15 to 20 years. And another guy comes in, he should go to jail. And another, you should go to jail. He's going to go to jail. Do you realize what he did? This is unfair. All this stuff that they're saying about what's going on with this, right? People, by the end of yesterday's Twitter Spaces, everybody said, this guy's going to jail for 15 years. If you're a salesperson, if you're an Uber driver, if you're somebody that say you're doing Uber Eats, you do Lyft, you're out there running appointments, you run a small business, but you don't want to have a gun because you don't want to get arrested and you're not trying to kill anybody. You're just trying to stop somebody so you can call the cops so they can come to you and you have enough ample time for people to stop. You may want a gift for 2023 for somebody. You may want to buy him a Byrna gun. And this Byrna gun, when I called, I said, I want this thing to be optional for everybody to buy. I want our guys to have a discount, so that's exactly what we negotiated. The link is right there if you're trying to buy something to protect yourself going into next year. So next year's going to be a year of investigation. It's going to be a very, very weird year with a lot of people going back and forth, especially when closer to election time. Highly recommend you buy one of these things. If you have a wife that's in sales, highly recommend you buy it for her, your daughter, yourself, your sales team, anybody and everybody that's out there seeing a lot of different people. You don't want to get you're pro-Second Amendment or you're not a pro-Second Amendment person. This is the gun for you to make sure you can protect yourself. The moment you point this at somebody, the first thing they see is all they think about. It's a real gun, and you can protect yourself. Again, legal in all 50 states. Let's put a link below so people can take advantage of it. So
that's what they believe.
They believe. A Romanian lawyer got on.
Oh, wow.
A Romanian lawyer got on and said, hey, here's what's going on. The Romanian lawyer also said something that was pretty fascinating. But the people who don't like it, let's not get it twisted. A girl yesterday tweets at me, some comedian, Nicole something, I don't even know what her last name is. But she tweets at me, she says, you're this, you're that, you're exactly this. I said, listen, the difference between me and you is you're emotional and you're speaking factually. This is going to happen. I'm being logical and paranoid. That's the only difference. You're doing this, I'm doing that. Okay? And, you know, so the people that are happy that he got arrested, You know what crowd they're a part of. You know why? They're celebrating whatever they're celebrating. Having said that, let's set that aside. Let's set those two aside. This is the most important point to be thinking about, okay? This is the most important point to be thinking about. If he committed the crime, he committed the crime, okay? I don't know all the rules and regulations. I don't know, Cardone got on and he says, well, I don't know anybody that does all the right business and has 6 different passports. Why do you need to have 6 different passports and et cetera, et cetera? Okay, it's a valid point. Why do you need 6 different passports? Maybe that's normal in Europe. Maybe that's how he gets around. Maybe it's a valuable thing to have passports. I know billionaires that have multiple passports. Maybe not 6, but I do know people that have 2 or 3 passports. In that area, it's actually very normal for somebody to have multiple passports.
Not so subtly address the fact that his father may or may not have worked for the CIA.
Yeah. So, but here's the part. We were doing a video a month ago on generational wealth. Remember when the whole thing was talking about generational wealth?
Rothschilds.
One of the things we realized is the Vanderbilts lost their wealth. They were the richest people in the world. They lost their wealth within 2 generations. Think about that. You're worth a few $100 billion. The money's lost within 2 generations. But the Medici family and the Rothschild family has kept the wealth and the power for many, many years. You know what rule those guys follow? One basic rule. Don't be loud. Do not be loud. Don't call out the establishment. Don't be too opinionated. Stay low-key. Keep a low profile. You don't see a Rothschild getting on TV, giving their opinions, running a podcast. You don't see a Medici family running the top podcast in the world. Now, having said that, the Medici and the Rothschild is playing a different game. They're indirectly part of the establishment because they have to buy
the global elites.
Exactly.
The definition of the global elite.
So for Tate to go out and you keep calling heroes over and over and over and over again, you're taking the ultimate risk. This means the speed to stardom is very, very quickly. But the fall could also be very, very quickly by these guys trying to manipulate and take you down. FYI, one of the corruptest countries in the world is Romania. You know how many people messaged me yesterday from Romania? Listen, this place is corrupt. That lawyer on the Twitter Spaces yesterday said the following. He said everything in Romania is about money. Everything. So if you want to buy them out to get out, you can do it. If other countries want to buy Romania, they can do it. If other countries want to call Romania to say, hey man, you guys got to get this thing squared away, or else we're not going to give you the support, or we're not going to give you this, you have to do it. Because Romania, who's Romania? Is it a top 20 empire? Is it a top 50 empire? Nobody thinks about Romania as one of the most powerful empires in the world that everybody wants to have a relationship with.
Yeah, this ain't Rome.
No.
Yeah.
This is definitely
Romania.
not Rome. So, meaning, if a place like Romania can buy down, that is very possible. I'm not saying that's what happened. That's very possible. Then, last but not least, I get a message this morning from a guy that's very, very connected in very connected in law and FBI,
Department of Justice.
extremely qualified guy. I don't want to give exactly what his job is because you know who it is. He said the following. I saw the interviews last night. Keep this in mind. If you talk to them, they have to have probable cause to do these warrants. The excuse that somebody made a complaint, an anonymous complaint at that, and they send a SWAT team to his house is bullshit. Even though it's Romania, they still have laws in the U.S. Embassy, and the U.S. Embassy was involved. I think the embassy put them up to it.
Wow.
He needs to find out where the hell and complain from there. Anyways, meaning he's trying to say,
It's all they all work together.
meaning this is not accidental to do the warrant. Maybe there is a probable cause for it, but also at the same time, U.S. Embassy was involved in going and taking him down. So it's a very strange situation going on with this. So it's not just a one-sided story. There's a lot of different sides to it. But everybody jumped celebrating this guy getting arrested. It was like their New Year's came 5 days before, 3 days before this guy getting arrested.
It was that's like he reminded me of that like John Gotti when he was out. Everybody was telling him all the conciliators are all like, listen, you're poking at the wrong. He's like, shut up. He's like, we're not supposed to be out it's a secret thing. You know what I mean? Like exactly that situation with him. It's like you poked it, just kind of disappear. You can't keep you can't keep messing with governments, and they're not going to come after your ass. This is a prime example of the same shit with Gotti.
A couple thoughts. A famous story that I always revisit with you, that you said, I don't know who you were meeting with. You were meeting with some billionaire, and you had a business idea for this billionaire. And I think condescendingly, but also like affectionately, was like, Pat, there's two types of people in this world. There's the person who's trying to make their first billion, and the person that's already made their billions. The difference between us is I'm just trying to keep my money, aka the Medicis, the Rothschilds, these types of people. You're the first type of person. Good luck on your endeavors. I'm going to keep doing me. Yeah. Right? Essentially investing in stocks or investing in bonds, essentially, if you want to put it that way. Let's not forget, nobody knew Tate 1 year ago. Okay, unless you're a kickboxer guy, nobody knew Tate whatsoever. Okay, so he's essentially working on his first billion, if you know what I mean. So, you in today's society, whether you're good, bad, up or down, it's all about views, it's all about eyeballs, it's all about status. So he's trying to make a name for himself. The problem is what this is kind of akin to is, like, we all read Greek mythology as a kid. Icarus, he flew a little too close to the sun and he got burned. Regarding, I think, Romania, if I may address that, I had a conversation with a buddy who lives in Colombia. We were hanging out yesterday. I go, hey, listen, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? He goes, Saz, you live in America. That's a real sweet idea. In Colombia, it's guilty until proven innocent. Like, he told the story of a buddy who got his house taken away from the government, and it taken 10 years of legal nonsense to try to get his house back that he's entitled to. So I don't know the framework in Romania, but something tells me in corrupt countries, you can kind of just do what you want to do.
Yeah, bro, money talks.
The one thing I will say about Romania, do you think this is a good look or a bad look for the country of Romania? I would argue that nobody has done more to help tourism and to make Romania popular as it is now than Tate. If Tate didn't live in Romania, if he lived in Croatia, if he lived in Serbia, if he lived in somewhere in Russia, nobody would be talking about Romania. Like, and he's said only good things about Romania. Come here, it's a Christian country. Yes, it's corrupt, but everyone's corrupt. And this difference is you can pay people off here. There's nice people, nice women. Like, it's like almost done the exact same thing that Borat did for Kazakhstan. Yeah. Nobody knows the Kazakhstan before, but the difference is Borat kind of clowned Kazakhstan. Yeah. Tate did good things for Romania. We're talking about Romania.
Bro, he has a casino there. You know how much money with taxes that they're gonna get for the country? Are you crazy, bro?
Yeah. So he's I don't know. Look, here's what I actually want to say. You talked about, like, the people that love Tate, they're coming to his defense. The people that hate Tate are just jumping on it. By the way, now, for whether it's me, whether it's you, whether it's anybody out there listening, now is the easiest time ever to shit on Tate. To pile on, I knew it, he's a scumbag. But now is actually where you show conviction and actually show friendship and actually show someone, you respect. So for me, I'm not believing any of this nonsense. I'm gonna stand by my innocent until proven guilty. And we've had a great time with Tate. I have nothing but good things to say about Tate. Are there gonna be some things we disagree upon? Sure. Yeah. I disagree with you. You're one of my best friends here. Same with Pat. But I'm not believing any of this nonsense. Again, innocent until proven.
Pull up the story I just texted you about. Let's read that Reuters story that just came out an hour ago.
I agree with you, Adam. For sure.
So by the way, one other very credible lady yesterday saying, what's her name? Eliza, something like that. Let me read this article about what she said. Ex-kickboxer undertake the Romanian rape and human trafficking case. Okay, go down. All right, so Romanian prosecutors asked the Bucharest court on Friday to extend the case for 30 days after the divisive internet personality was arrested on Tate, a former kickboxer, and his brother Tate. Okay, got that. And anti-organized crime prosecutors have notified the Rights and Liberties judge of the Bucharest court with the proposal to remand the 4 suspects for 30 days. The brothers declined to comment on Thursday, but their lawyer confirmed they had been detained Prosecutors said the Tate brothers have been under criminal investigation since April. The 4 suspects appear to have created an organized crime group with the purpose of recruiting, housing, and exploiting women by forcing them to create pornographic content meant to be seen on specialized websites for a cost. Go a little lower. Keep going. Prosecutors said they would have gained important sums of money. Prosecutors said they found 6 women who had been sexually exploited by the suspects. Tate gained notoriety for misogynistic comments and hate speech. He said women are partially responsible for being raped and they belonged to men. A number of social media platforms banned Tate, including Twitter, but his account here became active again November after the platform was taken over by Elon Musk. In one of his tweets following his return to the platform, said he was flying to California to tell Musk he was a legend. Tate appeared to have sent a tweet on Friday suggesting he had access to his phone and social media while in custody. Early this week, the British national was told to get a life by climate activist Greta Thunberg on Twitter. Okay, we know that whole story, how this thing takes place. But so there are 6. So one of these girls who was on the Twitter Spaces yesterday said the following. She says, "Look, you have to keep in mind that I've been dealing with one of the individuals that's making these claims, women that's making these claims since summer about that she was taken advantage of, and I've been working with her since April or May." This lady says, "I can't give you all the details. I can't say anything. I can't do this. I can't do that because I'm representing her. I'm helping her out. But this is real. They have been doing this." And the phrase that was constantly being used yesterday is the following phrase called the lover boy allegation. I don't know if you're familiar with the lover boy allegation. Pull up lover boy allegation. Type in lover boy allegation, which lover boy. Okay, right there. That's the first one. Yeah. Okay. So zoom in so we can read it in. So lover boys or Romeo pimps are human traffickers who usually are trying to make young girls or boys fall in love with them. Sometimes they manipulate young people in other ways. Once they have victims under their influence, they exploit them. For instance, the sex industry. Lover boy method changing due to internet and social media. Traditionally, lover boys seduces young, vulnerable girls and boys over a lengthy period of time in order to exploit them sexually. Later on, this practice is being used less and less. Nowadays, lover boys resort more quickly and frequently to threatening their victims using blackmail and violence. The internet and social media are playing an increasing role in this phenomenon. For instance, social media provides lover boys with much greater scope for establishing contact with victims and gathering information about vulnerable boys and girls. This makes it easier for them to bring victims into the sex industry. So that is the methodology they're saying they use.
Yeah, well, if I may, the lover, listen, I go out in South Beach, I have friends who are good-looking dudes, lover boys, like pimp-type dudes. What they're describing are sociopaths and criminals.
Yeah.
Okay, since when is being a good-looking, suave, methodical dude a bad thing? I think that's actually a good thing. So they're kind of copying and pasting and a nice name over actually a very criminal, intentive type of description. So I don't know this
Bro,
lover boy thing.
Have you guys seen? Go on anything that Dan Blazarian's doing? It's go on his Instagram. It's Dan Blazarian, Pat, with like 50 of the hottest, and he's just in the back chilling. He just
lover boy.
I mean, bro, like obviously, and mind you, these girls are getting the notoriety. They're with them. They're on Instagram. All these girls have a massive following everywhere. Everybody's getting paid. He's the, like Adam said, lover boy. He's the playboy, and it's an image. But like I said, Pat, it's all. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but it's all cahoots. If the U.S. Embassy's involved, we will both go in there, get the cameras, record it. And mind you, when this hit, Pat, it hit all my notifications. It's an effort by everybody all together to try to knock this guy down.
Let me tell you something about these lover boys. Okay, whatever this is. There's exceptions and there are rules. Okay, let's talk about the rule because obviously we can go to exceptions. If you're Dan Bilzerian, if you're Andrew Tate, for example, if you're Leonardo DiCaprio, if you're Matthew McConaughey, you're George Clooney, you don't need to resort to this fucking nonsense. Yeah. You have girls throwing themselves at you.
Yeah.
You don't need to induce. You don't need to drug. You don't need to like manipulate. You get what you want. Now, the exceptions, you're a fucking scumbag like Bill Cosby or Harvey Weinstein. those are the exceptions. But if you're an exceptional dude or you're a high dude, man of status, you don't need to resort to these types of measures. It's just something you don't need to do as a dude.
Yeah.
The worst dudes out there are the guys that can't get laid, that get no attention from girls, got nothing going on for them. Those are the sociopaths you need to look out for.
Yeah.
Those are the rapists. Those are the criminals. I'm not buying this bullshit.
I mean, and Pat, and the beauty, like you said, is that he's lucky that it is Romania. And dude, he has money, bro. He's not gonna go to jail for. I don't think he's gonna go to jail at all.
Yeah.
No, no. But that's the problem, because I know, Pat, here the RICO thing that like Giuliani and them did is that, now think about this: if he has somebody in his crew that was being shady, does he get in trouble?
So what they're one of the things you guys said a lot of things here, so I'm going to impress this. Lover boy, Hugh Hefner was a lover boy.
Exactly.
Yeah, number one.
The ultimate lover boy guy.
And you don't think he had
Praise.
accusations? He had women still to this day accusing him of like holding them hostage.
He did, but the only difference is he didn't call out climate change action. He didn't call out the left. He didn't call out any of this stuff. So there's a rule of thumb. If you go after the establishment, be ready. If you go after the establishment, be ready, especially the louder you are. By the way, there are only a few people loud enough to go after the establishment. One of the guys today that's super loud is number one is Musk.
Yep.
And Tate's in the top 10 of the loudest against the establishment. We know what happened when Trump went after the establishment.
Yep.
We're seeing what's going on with Musk going after the establishment. We're seeing what he went after the establishment. Those are a couple things you got to be careful with. Here's a part about what you just said. One of the claims is what they're trying to do, okay, is, you know how a lot of times, like, well, how come he doesn't come to U.S.? I don't want to come to U.S. I don't want to come to U.S. I don't want to come to U.S. One of the claims that one of the lawyers made is they're trying to use this to bring him to U.S. courts to get him to be seen guilty. This is an outcome of trying to bring him here.
Extradition.
Yes, to bring him here and have the U.S. courts hold him accountable, okay? Because who is he calling out? If you were to take out of the 196 countries or so that we have, give or take, what country does he call out the most?
U.S.
Not, is there even
The
a
Western
close,
society, Western
nothing.
culture, global
Western society is the first
100%.
country he calls out. Non-stop, he's constantly calling out. Okay. And what's he calling out about?
Like making men into like making them
System is
soft.
rigged.
And he's basically saying that, you know, when you want to come and let's say take over a country, you got to take the men, get the men out, make them feminine, and da 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 da. And he's just calling out all the woke shit.
Who, you know, the woke folks don't want to hear that. The left folks don't want to hear that.
Of course not.
The majority
So-
of women also don't want to hear that.
No. I'm telling you, yesterday, the amount of DMs that I got, I've never gotten DMs like this. You piece of shit, you this,
really?
you that,
By the
you
way, I'm
might as well die.
getting
and
the
you,
same nonsense.
You know,
Yeah.
I can't believe you said this, and I can't believe you said that. To me, that's not typical protocol where people message me and stuff like that. But to defend him, he's that much of a trigger to the left. Because Greta, don't forget, that post, that tweet by her got a couple 100 million views on Twitter, and this is under Musk. That thing got a couple 100 million views under Twitter. What does that tell you? She's got a following. Of course. She's got influence. People actually want to sit there and believe that she's right. And by the way, thank God she's 19 years old. Because some people would come back and said, you're going after a minor. But she's 19 years old, so it's not like we all know her as 12 years old or 15 years old. She's no longer 15 years old. She's 19 years old today. So, yeah, they're trying to bring him to the stage. That's what a lot of people said they're trying to do. So we'll see.
Here's where I think Tate message gets lost in translation. So when we sat with him, I said, what's the number one reason you thought you were canceled? He goes, I already know. I said, is it masculinity? Is it toxic masculinity? Is it chauvinism? Is it calling out the system? Is it calling out the matrix? Is it male self-importance? He's like, I already know. The reason I got canceled is because I call out the establishment, I call out the matrix. They don't want to hear what I have to say. But you talk about Tate's messaging. I believe there's three major themes that he talks about. So number one is he's called out the matrix and the system and everything, the global elite that comes with that. Cool, fair, we just addressed that. Number two is what he's labeled as a misogynist or chauvinist and toxic masculinity. And that's kind of how he's labeled. Like if you look at any article out there, any headline, it's male chauvinist Andrew Tate, toxic masculinity Andrew Tate. And that's kind of what he's framed as. But if you actually peel back the onion and you actually listen to what Tate's saying and not taking it little sound bites, all he's talking about at the end of the day is male self-improvement. And that's essentially everything that we stand for here at Value Champion. That's everything that I talk about here, is no matter what you're doing in life as a man, there's always room for self-improvement. Personal responsibility, being positive, whether it's being stronger, faster, cooler, wealthier, doper, sexier, everything is about status, okay? So when it comes to self-improvement, here, I'm gonna go on a little rant for a sec. The number one thing that a man can have is status. There's 3 types of status that a man can reach. There's number 1, wealth, okay, and everything that comes with wealth. Money, success, ambition, your network, everything that you collect, resources, that's number 1, part of status. Number 2 is attractiveness as a male, status. So, meaning you're good looking, you're in shape, you're suave, you dress well. Like Jordan Peterson talks about dressing in suits and looking like a man. So that is attractiveness. Women obviously like dudes with 6-packs and muscle, like that's part of that. And then the third one is having game. Now, there's different types of game out there that can improve your status. So whether it's you're funny, you're a comedian, you're clever, you're witty, you're romantic, you're kind, whatever it is, that's your game. Now, here's the deal. If you're in the top 10% of any of those 3 categories, you will get women, and women will come to you. What do I mean? If you've got a ton of money, I don't care if you look like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Women are going to be attracted to you. Number 2, if you're an attractive guy, you're in shape, you're a good-looking dude, that's done. Like, no matter how much money you have, you're going to get women. If you've got game, whether you're a funny comedian or whether you're a suave dude, romantic, whatever it is, whatever your skill set is, if you're in the top 10% of any of those 3 categories, you'll get women. Now, to put this all together, like Jake would do, he would say, keep working on all 3. Make your money, work your ass out, improve your game, learn how to talk to women. You know, famously in the Red Pill community, what he's a part of, it's money, muscles, game, and hold frame. So, again, back to my initial point. Yes, he talks about the system, and he talks about people label him as a misogynist and a toxic masculinity. But at the end of the day, I think the reason that he's resonated with so many dudes is he's like, nobody's coming to save you, bro.
Yeah.
Nobody's walking in this door. You need to do it yourself. Keep improving. Keep working. Outwork, out-strategize, out-improve, outlast. And that's his messaging. But nobody wants to talk about that.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here, and I'm here with Jocko Willink of Extreme Ownership, how U.S. Navy SEALs win. I'm really excited to read this because I really enjoyed your podcast with Tim Ferriss. I've seen you around the UFC a bunch of times, but I didn't know much about you. But you're one of those dudes, you know, where I look at this guy, I'm like, that guy probably knows some shit. Is this something about you? Like when I see you, you hang around with Lister, I saw you a few times at the UFC, I'm like, I probably know some shit. I've already seen some shit. And then I saw or listened to the Tim Ferriss podcast, and I go, okay, well that makes a lot of sense now. If you haven't heard that podcast, it is excellent. And you're the first guy ever to come with your own notepad and your own pen, too. Just want to point that out.
Just trying to be prepared.
Well, that's your whole thing, man. I'm a big fan of your social media posts, too, because I like feeling like a lazy fuck whenever I look at your social media posts and you have a picture of your watch, 4:45 in the morning. This dude's out there working out. I like it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I obviously had zero social media presence like 3 months ago or whatever the case may be. And Tim Ferriss was, basically said, hey, you need to get on this social media stuff. And I said, okay, can you kind of show me what to do? And he says, yeah, sign up. So I signed up, and then he dropped that podcast that gets listened to by a bunch of people. And all of a sudden I was engulfed in the social media world. And I found Twitter to be the one that was the easiest to use, and you don't have to write a lot. So, I don't like people that talk a whole bunch without saying anything. So I figured that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the thing that I was thinking when he was encouraging you to use social media. I was like,
wait,
a guy like you, you're not a...
Well, you're back. Care to buy something?
Peacocker, And there's something about social media.
goodbye.
pleasure to meet thee, Tarnished. I am the witch Renna. I'd heard tell of a Tarnished hurtling about atop a spectral steed, and upon looking into the matter, the talk, I surmise, is of thee. Thou art possessed of the power, no? To call forth a spectral steed named Torrent. Ah, as I had hoped, I was entrusted this for thee, by Torrent's former master. 'Tis a bell for calling forth spirits. Summon them with it. From ash and return to the Erdtree, the spirits will obey thine command but briefly, as they recall battles past. Now it is thine, to do with as thou wishest. Forgive mine intrusion, Tarnished. I doubt we shall again meet. But
delivery for a package of drama that not many people ordered or expected. So I just wanted to do like a little ESPN halftime show and just kind of give everyone the update on where everything's at, because so much has happened all at once in just the last 24 hours. It's hard to keep track of. So I'm just going to be here as like your navigator on the ship. The first and obviously largest topic to begin with is the Andrew Tate situation, with him and his brother Tristan being arrested in Romania on human trafficking charges. At least that's what was initially reported by every major outlet ever. However, this has been developing in a very interesting way. It's like diarrhea in a swimming pool. The water's getting messy, because it started circulating on Twitter that he wasn't arrested on human trafficking charges, it was money laundering and not human trafficking. The genesis of this claim started from an account called Rap TV, which I'm not super familiar with, but from everything I can read, they're not like the end-all be-all of truth tellers, but they made a post claiming that human trafficking charges against the Tate brothers were bogus. It was actually them being apprehended for money laundering suspicion. However, that tweet's now been deleted. And while they've deleted that tweet, this one still remains on their account about it being an alleged human trafficking probe. So to me, that says that they must have got word, like officially, that it was money laundering. However, that narrative still exists on Twitter and led to massive debates about what's the truth behind their arrest. I haven't seen a single major outlet run with this narrative other than a couple of random accounts on Twitter. Not even like news accounts or anything like that, just actual random individuals running with it, even though that tweet has now been fact-checked. Every major outlet that's covering the case hasn't mentioned money laundering a single time, which I suppose you could write off as a big conspiracy to keep the truth under wraps, I guess, but most of them are just focusing on what the prosecutors are claiming to have found, with like 6 women who have been sexually exploited. These are big claims and obviously nothing's proven yet, so we're going to have to wait to see how the story plays out, which is exactly what I said in the last video as well. It's not some kind of done deal. This is a big investigation that's been ongoing for some time, so we're going to have to see how everything works out. Now, I also do take a lot of information from outlets with a grain of salt, as everyone should. However, with every major outlet, including official sources involved in the case, as well as video evidence of the arrest and everything is coming out, it's no longer just a rumor and potential fake news. There's clearly something going on here. So, the reason why I'm mentioning that right now is because this really exploded this morning when Andrew Tate on Twitter made a statement of tweeted, "The Matrix sent their agents." And this led people to believe that it was all a hoax from the beginning. He's clearly free now, thus all of this was a bunch of baloney. But that's not the case, because he was only being detained for 24 hours from the start. It's been 24 hours, thus they let him go, like a fish back in the water. Like, he's home, he can tweet, you know, he could even make another video smoking a cigar if he wanted to. But it's not because he's free from the investigation or anything, he's just free from the holding. From everything I have read, everything I've seen from the sources, like the real sources, like the officials, he is still being investigated on the human trafficking charges, and they're currently trying to lobby for a 30-day extension on his detainment period while they continue to investigate. So he is able to tweet, talk, and do everything he'd like to do now, but that doesn't mean that proves him innocent. At least not in anything I've read so far. Now maybe that changes in the next couple of hours. It's very possible. Like I mentioned on stream as well, I'm not surprised that he is not being held in prison for the duration of the investigation. Him being released on bail, I can absolutely see him being a permanent thing throughout the entire investigation and being able to do his own online. Like, that's not surprising in the slightest. It makes no sense, like a similar case I saw on Twitter this morning about like how my video got completely incorrect and Andrew Tate is home tweeting. No, it's not. Everything I said isn't invalidated by the fact that he is past the 24-hour detainment period. That was always going to happen. That doesn't disprove anything. Everything about like the claims and all that are still there, and the investigation is ongoing. He is just able to tweet and do what he wants now because of the detainment period expiring. Like, it's just delusional to say that now it was all just rumors being spread. I feel real fucking silly now, Charlie. No, I was reporting on all of the facts that were presented, from the video of the arrest, from all of the claims made by the prosecutors and everything going on there. I was talking about those and even mentioning we're going to have to wait to see how everything wraps up. And now we've had a more recent development with what's going on in the investigation, and now he's past the payment period. So maybe Andrew Tate will even make a public statement about all of this and give more insight into what's happening. Like, this is not something that's surprising or unexpected. And it doesn't all of a sudden magically make everything I said in the last video wrong, because all of those facts are still current facts, unless that gets overturned in the next few hours, which again, could happen. It's very possible, I'm not denying that. I'm not there. I don't have a secret camera installed in Andrew Tate's home. I don't know what the truth is. I'm learning the same as everyone else. That pizza box theory had a lot of weight behind it with where that source came from making the claim. So that one is still currently in fact as well, and a lot of people are harping on that, like, how could you ever believe it was a pizza box? Well, because they even said it in like their initial reports, like that is still there, which it could be overturned. All of it could be, as it develops. And so we're going to wait and see. I'm just talking about all of the information that's available and what's going on. So yeah, just wanted to clear that up. And I know a lot of people have been stressing about this with Andrew Tate, his brother, being arrested. So he probably had a difficult time sleeping. And maybe it's because of the stress, and maybe your mattress just isn't that great. So I'd like to thank Helix, the sponsor of today's video. Big thanks to Helix for sponsoring today's video. Helix makes premium quality mattresses that are easy to ship to your door and perfectly match your needs. They have a Helix sleep quiz which will match you to the perfect mattress based on your body type. So if you want something firm or something a little softer, it'll find that out in the sleep quiz and match you with the perfect mattress the company does. So I've had a Helix mattress for about 2 years now, and it's still the perfect fit for my body type. It's not super firm and it's not super soft. It's in that nice limbo in between. And it's still a comfort level I haven't seen in other mattresses since. It was a super quick and easy process to fill out the quiz and get that mattress, and I absolutely think it was 100% worth it. It was also just super easy to get it all together since it was shipped right to the door. It comes rolled up in a box, you just unroll it, and then you're pretty much set to go. And there's even a 100-night trial that lets you test the mattress and make sure that you love it. If you don't, you know, no problem. Helix mattresses include a 10-year warranty, and they offer financing options. So there's a premium mattress to website. Make sure to go to helix.com. Get up to $200 plus 2 free pillows. Next up is Logan Paul once again making a fool out of himself. He posted this picture on Twitter, I guess, in a little prelude to his upcoming response to the CoffeeZilla video series that was posted for the massive crypto scam called Crypto 2. He's been teasing that he's going to respond to it on January 3rd, and then he dropped this little nugget of fringe on Twitter today. He's cosplaying as CoffeeZilla with his standard attire, and the caption is just coffee and app emoji. So I'm led to believe, as are most people, that what he's doing is a satirical investigation on himself, where he's going to be guiding the crypto that happened there. And I imagine the shocking revelation from his investigation will be that he's innocent. Logan Paul investigated himself and found out that it was actually everyone around him that was evil, not him. He's the good guy. Logan Paul has cleared himself of all charges. He is innocent on all of them. Like I said in the initial video, I really am excited to see this maintain that Godzilla got it wrong. So I'm really excited to see from his perspective. You know, I'm pumping my fist to watch Ace Attorney Paul get out there and set the record straight and present his evidence from his side. If I had to take a guess at how he's going to work this case, I imagine he is going to focus very heavily on Eddie and David. I'm not going to get too deep into this because maybe some of you aren't familiar with the scam that Paul was exposed for, so I imagine he's going to drill heavily on those two characters as bad actors while downplaying his involvement with the project, even though he was the face of it and the one that actually put on the map promoting it. So I feel like he is going to really laser focus on those two being bad. Once again, everyone involved in CryptoZilla was a scammer, so they're all bad. But he's going to really minimize his involvement in the entire project and just focus on the other people that were also bad. That's what I think will result from the investigation, but I'm super open to being proven wrong. I just wanted to put my prediction out here just in case it happens to be accurate, because then it looks really cool. But I am a little pessimistic about how this is going to play out for him, because he doubled down on the cringe by posting this video, or this picture at the line, a picture of a broken coffee mug to a coffee on the floor. That is so lame. I really hope this is just a stock photo and he didn't set this up for a photo shoot, because that is embarrassing. Now the next crazy thing that's happened over the last 24 hours is YouTube secretly rolling out a huge policy change, like an absolutely massive change to the platform that overnight demonetized tons and tons of channels. Like entire channels being demonetized, very popular channels losing monetization on half their catalog of videos. It's a big change that YouTube didn't publicize, so no one saw it coming. It snuck up and surprised everybody. It's a change to their policy in regards to like violent gaming content or anything involving violence, even like and shit too. So I actually won't talk about the feed right now because I made an entire video going over the there's so many moving parts to it. So I'll post that later on tonight. This next topic actually isn't super new in regards to the other ones here. It's not something that's happened over the last 24 hours, but it's still what I want to talk about because it's just a trend that continues to infuriate me and a lot of other people as well. The Last of Us showrunner is once again doing the standard thing of belittling the games that they're adapting for the show. This is a terrible strategy that's been used by many shows that have come before Last of Us, most notably and most disgustingly by the Halo TV show, where the creators proudly proclaim that they never played the games and had no interest in playing the games, which is what the fucking franchise was based off of in the first place. It's just this continued trend of shitting on the games and making it seem like you actually don't care about that at all. Like, what is the point? Why make an enemy out of the fans of the property you're adapting? It is just so nonsensical. It's fucking lunacy. I don't get it, and they continue to do it. Just loving the smell of their own farts so much that their entertainment medium is so much better than video games. In video games, it's just pixels that are dying. In TV, it's people pretending to die. It's so much more highbrow than your lame-ass games. We're doing you a favor by adapting that trash into our HBO Last of Us show. Here's this whole statement, and I don't even disagree with it. It's not incorrect. It's just useless to say because this comes across as you not respecting the game you're adapting. When you're playing a section, you're killing people, and when you die, you get sent back to a checkpoint, all the people are back moving around in the same way. Watching a person die, I think, ought to be much different than watching pixels die. Yeah, I mean, it should be different. But why say it this way? But when you say watching pixels die and like downplaying the emotional impact the game can have on someone and just reducing it to just pixels on a screen, you're clearly showing some kind of bias towards not really liking the game itself. You could have said this same message very differently. Oh, in The Last of Us, you know, Death was always very emotional and did a great job in the medium, and we're hoping we can take that same energy and deliver that same emotion in our field. We're hoping with our show we can faithfully adapt the video game characters into the real world, and it's going to be a little different because now it's human beings you're seeing here, but hopefully it can still get the same emotional beats the game did. Like, you're saying the same thing, but in a very different way. It's very clear that you are showing a lot of respect for the source material that you're adapting. I was very optimistic for The Last of Us TV show, because for me it sounds like something you can't really fuck up, since it's such a clear roadmap to follow. It's just like there's very little room for ruining it. But now, after reading the statement, I have to scratch my head and get a little curious. Well, how much did they play the game, and do they even like the game they're adapting? Because it seems like time and time again, studios pass off these adaptations to departments and people that don't even play or like the property that they're adapting. So why the fuck do they keep getting the projects? Yeah, that was really the last big topic that's happened recently that I thought was important, just to get to the cliff notes out here about what's going on. A lot of these stories are still developing, obviously, so I'm very curious to see where all of these end up once they reach their conclusions, and that's about it. So yeah. I'm sure you've at least heard by now that Logan Paul was caught with his pants down, exposed for one of the largest scams ever run by an influencer. This was all brought to light by the finest detective YouTube has ever had, a channel known as Coffee Door. I've talked about Coffee Door more than Amy Schumer's talks about her vagina. I can't get enough of this content, so I can't recommend his channel highly. It is beautiful stuff. He's like a real-world elf in Death Note. But instead of solving murder mysteries, he's solving scams. He's become a boogeyman to any fraudster online, where if he knocks on your door, they run to the basement and hide, like Batman striking fear into the hearts of criminals. And recently, he set his sights on Logan Paul. This is actually an investigation that's been going on for an extremely long time. CoffeeZilla has spent at least a year going through every single detail of this case and getting all sides, talking to the people that helped develop it, as well as people affected by it, and even core members of the team that were in the know on what was going on from the beginning of the project, from the goddamn birth of it, from the very beginning. CoffeeZilla has talked to one of the people that helped bring this project to life. Now, to break it down into a nutshell, CryptoZoo was supposed to be a play-to-earn crypto game. You buy a shitcoin called Zoo, which you use to purchase an NFT egg, which hatches into stock photos of animals. You breed those stock photos of animals into more stock photos. That's the entire gameplay. You look at fucking PNG stock photos of animals that combine like a whale with a frog. That's it. And where you earn money is by burning those PNGs. You get Zoo in return, playing for you. It sounds like the worst game ever fucking made. It's a worse game than Like, it was a $200 Steam game that was a single level and only 30 seconds of gameplay. I'd have more fun watching my own car catch on fire with all of my shit inside of it than playing Crypto. But it was never designed to be a game to play. From the very beginning, it was clearly designed to be a money-making scam to exploit Logan Paul's massive market. The game also never even worked. To this day, over a year later, still doesn't work. You were never able to actually play, and you were never able to actually earn. Unless, of course, you were one of the founders from the beginning. Because then, there were a couple of founders that made a lot of money, including a cameo from someone you might be familiar with from previous scams, Jake the Crypto King, known for his Pokemon scam back in the day. He's back. I said on stream that this whole thing feels like the series finale to Logan Paul's career, where all of the side characters come in together for one big final hoorah, like an episode where they bring in everyone to celebrate the end of the show. It is crazy just how deep this CryptoZoo rabbit hole goes. I don't want to spoil anything, but yes, Agent 47 is back, and he is once again a very shady and big piece of shit in this whole thing. There are no good guys on the CryptoZoo team. I don't want to get too deep into it because CoffeeZilla tells the whole story, but let me just give you the clip notes here to get you hooked. This not only has scams galore, it even has fake orphans. It has a man who claims to have won the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2018, despite never having even been associated with football in any capacity. The same guy also claiming he's been a CIA operative, as well as hacking AOL. There's market manipulation. There's betrayal with the founding fathers who stabbing each other in the back repeatedly. It just plays out like a soap opera, but was real. Like, even the scammers were scamming each other. So not only were normal people getting fucked in the mouth and losing money on this completely fraudulent product, but even the scammers were scamming each other. Like, it was just pure pandemonium and chaos. There was even a point where the code got stolen and taken to Switzerland, held hostage for $1 million ransom. Like, the web here is so wild and wacky. It is an unreal journey. And I don't want to spoil it all here. I highly recommend you watch the entire 3-part series from CoffeeZilla. I'm only going to be showing you the first part here that I watched in order to get the bare bones breakdown of the situation, as well as setting the stage, the foundation for the whole investigation going forward. It is just such an incredible ride. CoffeeZilla has truly outdone himself in this investigation. I'm extremely excited to see how Logan Paul defends it, because the evidence that CoffeeZilla showcases seems pretty full of proof. It seems like there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for excuses. excuses or any kind of justification for anything in regards to crypto. But, of course, on January 3rd, Logan Paul has hyped up that his response is coming on his podcast, which to me just feels like an advertisement more than anything, but I will, of course, withhold full judgment until I hear his side, since he hasn't been very open to sharing his side for the last year. This has been like my most anticipated show of the entire year. CoffeeZilla's 3-part deep dive into Logan Paul's crypto scam, Crypto Zoo. I'm extremely excited, and I'm super happy to see CoffeeZilla go so hard on this. He's gained like almost 400,000 subs since posting these videos, something like that. He deserves it. I know he spent quite a few months investigating this. I know he's also reached out to Logan Paul numerous times to try and get his side of the story, but had dodged and ducked every single time until he finally posted this video. Saw Logan Paul's tweet saying, actually I'll just pull it up instead of paraphrasing. He did the standard, I used to love CoffeeZilla, and I always think he gets everything right. Until like, this is very cookie cutter. Somehow, every single time CoffeeZilla talks about some kind of big scam like this, it's always good. While I generally appreciate Satan's creative and release an exceptional work that, this one is simply not. When appropriate, all my messages are exposed, explained, and accountable on the also January 3rd. Which to me reads more like an advertisement for a podcast than anything. But I always just love this first line because this is a spoiler at this point. What everyone says when CoffeeZilla makes a video about them. A creative genius, one of the best in the business, ace detective, like Benoit Blanc. This time he fucked up, trust me. This time he's wrong. I lost $25,000. This is absolutely shocking to me. These aren't children. You're telling me these adults watch Logan Paul, or did they had to have just heard about this from like crypto subreddits, discords, all trying to like make training shit out of this? I refuse to believe that this is Logan Paul's money. No fucking shot. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 500K.
Today we're investigating Logan Paul's
Yikes.
Crypto, a
Oh my
blockchain
God.
game that made millions but never worked. And of course, at the center of it, we have Logan Paul himself, who is abandoned.
WWE superstar, baby.
Thousands of orphans in his wake. Wait a second. Thousands of victims in his wake.
For the last 6 months, I've been working on my NFT project. We have a massive team behind it. And
Real quick, you might be asking yourself, well, what experience does Logan Paul have with NFTs? And that's a great question to be asking, and I have the answer. He was actually a pioneer in NFTs, and in fact still has some of the best NFTs of all time, such as... are these still up on OpenSea? Well, here's his Pokemon cards. Beautiful stuff. Very high quality stuff. And, I mean, only $10,000. Reasonably priced as well. Where he used to sell clips. So you could pay thousands of dollars to get an NFT clip of him boxing. Honestly, just giving it away at that price. You get like 15-second Twitter boxing matches.
We don't scam. I've never scammed anyone before. Logan cares extremely deeply about his audience, loves his brand, doesn't have to scam to make money.
True, but you make a lot of money doing it, I imagine, so. The cookie jar was
$1
too
million
appealing.
mystery that began this
for the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project. I think that
Whoa.
the fresh take in this project that I have is that fresh take.
Now look, at first,
Yep,
I was
let's
just as
go.
surprised at this pitch as anyone else because I just got finished roasting Logan for a different coin called Dink Doink, which is fans
Doink.
lose money on.
I'm a Dink Doink fan.
And it wasn't even a project at all. It was a game that could earn you money.
I'm excited to launch.
Called Pay to
You
Earn.
keep using a, and you
Or,
just did it
Jesus,
again, you keep
Play to
using a
Earn.
word there. Game. You're not using like a project. It's a game.
It's a game. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
You started by buying this crypto token called Zoo, which is their in-game currency, and you use Zoo coins to then buy egg NFTs, which you can then hatch to become animals. You then can breed those two animals to become hybrid animals. For example, if you breed a gorilla,
What a fun
and a
sounding
kitten,
game.
you get a Gore Kitty. And the more rare the NFT, the
I get to
higher
breed
the daily
animals?
yield
Sign
of
me
Zoo
up.
tokens that animal earns you every day. Theoretically, it works like almost like passive income. You can then burn your animal NFTs to release the Zoo they earned back to you, and from there you can invest it into eggs or just cash out. Now, some of you of the Egyptian persuasion might notice some triangular qualities.
No, that's a
to this game
coincidence.
description.
We handmade art for the past 6 months, bro. Approval, very specific notes, 10 different artists making art for our project.
That doesn't
Now,
sound
I'll
like a
admit,
lot of artists.
This all
for
sounds
that.
very enticing. Handmade art, a
Not
fun
really.
game that can earn you
Doesn't
money.
sound
and
enticing.
one of the biggest influencers in the world backing it.
It was Logan Paul at the end of the day. An internet personality that I actually trusted. That I actually
Why?
kind
What did?
believed
What,
in.
well, I feel terrible that that happened to you, but what? What in the history of Logan Paul has earned anyone's trust ever? Like, I can't think of anything he's ever done that was honest. Like, I legitimately can't. Except for him saying that he made a repeated lapse in his judgment when he filmed a dead body. Like, that's like the only thing I can think of with like honesty associated with Logan Paul. But yeah, I mean, Prime did come out. I've tried it. I mean, it's a real drink. I wasn't instantly poisoned or anything. It was fine. I actually thought it was good. But I'm just gonna chalk that up to KSI. I'm just gonna say KSI did everything because I legitimately have no trust in Logan.
But as the game got closer to release, the CryptoZoo team started releasing the first ever photos of these animals. And come to find out, this handmade art story wasn't really true. It was actually Adobe stock photos mashed together. This was the sort of first red flag of this project.
Hey!
And I made a video about it at the time, but it was kind of surface level, and something
what the
didn't
fuck?
add up beneath the surface. Something where I just couldn't. And it's not handmade at all. It's not even original. It's what's called a fork, a copy of, some other code that exists out there. One of them is called Floki Shib X, which launched before it. So where'd this $1 million go? I didn't understand.
There never was.
Wait. Play that again. Did you hear that?
There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Hold on.
I can't
the
believe
core
it.
mechanic of crypto
What?
that you can make money with these stupid
No.
animals didn't even work on launch day, and still to this day, a year later, still does not work.
So I acquired a bunch of eggs, and I actually want to play the game. I didn't acquire the eggs with the intent of keeping them. I actually wanted to hatch them and see what I got out of them and play in this ecosystem that's for this.
I am sorry this happened to you, my friend. What compelled you to want to play this game? There is no game. The game is you buy an egg, and then we give you a stock photo of what this animal might look like with a goofy nose. What is the game? Like, the only reason anyone would have ever put money into this is off the hope that they're somehow able to make a payday out of it. Like, cash in their yield for some kind of profit. There is no, like, actual game mechanics. It is, here's a couple pictures you can look at. That's it. That's fucking it. Just the worst Pokemon. It's not even a Pokemon at all. Like, even, let's take a card game. Even a card game has game mechanics. You play against someone, there is a goal, there is something you do, there is an actual gameplay element to it. Here, the gameplay is you hatch an egg, and we combine this photo of a moose with a photo of my cat. And that's it. And now you have played our game, and now you can either choose to keep that picture and hope it appreciates in value, yield some more zoo, or you burn it to acquire your zoo. Those are your two options, neither of which constitute a game. Jesus Christ.
It's never been up.
Wait, you can't even hatch?
No, I'm telling you, it's just a picture. There's nothing I can do with it.
You're kidding!
That's the whole game. It's just a picture. Even when you can hatch, it's just another picture.
You can ask any of those community guys. It's basically worth nothing whatsoever.
Wow. So on launch day, basically nothing worked, and a year later, that's still true. Now, after this was discovered, the price of Zoo fell 63% in just 24 hours. CryptoZoo already got millions in investments, but Logan only speaks in the Discord twice over the next year to say, quote, sober currently shaking my head. And yo,
Yo!
that was his contribution
Let's go.
to this project. Meanwhile,
That's
his
pretty cool.
community manager, Ben Roth,
Because surely Logan Paul, who's got this billion-dollar hydration company and a WWE star, he's got enough money. He doesn't need to rug us lot.
and it's because of these false promises about marketing that these poor investors believed in CryptoZoo so long. They sat and watched every
It actually
Logan
is
Paul
very
episode.
impressive how far you can get when people just believe that you're too wealthy to exploit them. Like, if someone just believes you have so much money, that for some reason makes you trustworthy. That's wild to me. Because I'd always think it's the fucking opposite.
I'm watching this is out, but he's been working on a massive project.
And one of them will be the biggest thing I ever do. Is like my life and soul is into this project, which is where most of my time these days goes.
I'll tell you about the project when we get closer to the project.
No, that shit sucks. That shit is garbage. I can't believe you guys bought that. Holy fuck, it was awful.
And Logan
You
Paul
brought up the egg?
was
That's a
new
joke.
secret project, and you think it was CryptoZoo. And someone's like, oh, is it that thing with the egg? And he's like, no. Definitely not. That was the last project. This is the real project that I'm working on.
Much going on behind the scenes. Like, Doug, I'm not the bad guy here.
Yeah.
There's some actual out there.
Yeah.
And it's not me. Like, I'm here to build.
Oh, okay.
This
Well,
is
now,
a space
well, now
where
that's
a lot of people
okay. Well, now I
do
believe
see
you.
dollar signs. Like any burgeoning industry, there's money to be made. There's going to be both good and bad people.
There's a
Okay,
lot of
well, at
shady
least we set the
characters in
record
crypto
straight.
space. I'm learning all of it. We had a issue. Took the code that he made, fled to Switzerland, actually fled to Switzerland, and like held it hostage for $1 million. Like behind the scenes drama that took a stick and stuck it into the spokes of my wheels.
Oh. That wasn't expected. There's a shady developer who held up Logan's code hostage in Switzerland. That's why this hasn't worked the whole time. He held it hostage for $1 million. We find out the truth of what happened. Why did he steal Logan's code for $1 million? However,
That's what I really appreciate about CompuZilla. He's such a stronger man than I. That is like the most egregiously bullshit story ever. Like, genuinely, I don't believe a single fucking phrase uttered in that same breath. I don't think there's any world where that's actually true, but CompuZilla is still going to investigate it anyway.
I finally got a hold of him. When I did, he
It's
admitted
true?
he
No
was
way.
hostage, but he says the reason for it is nothing like what Logan
No.
said.
What? Building what? You take a picture and you have your stock photos that you mash together to make a new picture when it hatches. Where is $50,000 a week going? Where? Where? How? Holy shit, this is outrageous. But I am beyond shocked that this is at least a half-truth. So the guy did flee to Switzerland after holding the code hostage, but it was because Logan didn't pay him or the team. So he was telling a half-truth on the situation. I can't believe any part of it was true. That is already quite the twist for me.
According to him, they negotiated a $1 million payday for this whole project. And from the second I heard that, I thought, oh, that's interesting because Logan claims he spent $1 million on this whole thing. And this developer saying he's owed $1 million.
We've been paid nothing. I would have loved to have you, but I don't have any.
So that's multiple sources working on the CryptoZoo team project who were not paid. Now, obviously, these are big accusations, which is why I wanted to confront Logan Paul on them. But unfortunately, we're not exactly on speaking terms. So I wonder, how could I speak to Logan without speaking to Logan? Logan Paul's manager, a guy named Jeff Levin.
Jeff.
He might be just what we need to settle this. So, I get it.
Hello?
Hey Jeff, hey, sorry to bother you. This is Steven with CompuZilla. I'm calling because I've heard reports that CryptoZoo hasn't paid their development team, and I'm just reaching out for comments before I do this story. I just want to follow up on that.
I have no comment for it.
Okay,
Oh, well, fair enough.
Are you guys
Okay.
denying it, or are you just saying it's not true?
No comment. No.
You guys have a whole side to
I know,
your
but
story here.
your job as a as someone that is reporting news is to actually verify correct news.
Well, that's what he's
why I'm
trying.
calling you.
I know, and that's legal grounds for that stuff. So I'm just telling you, legally, you have to report correct news with verifiable information.
Right, that's why I'm calling you.
As we've been advised always, if anybody reports fake news, that's where
Then set the record straight. What? What? Is everyone around Logan just a fucking idiot? Like an actual bumbling buffoon? Huh? That is why he called you. You could have absolutely just, if it's not true, shut it down. Or tell him, yeah, it's not true, I wasn't aware of this, we can go ahead and get some material together to prove that it's all fake. Bang. Right then and there. You don't have to immediately tell CoffeeZilla all the evidence or anything, just say like, hey, it's not true. If you can give us some time, we can get together all the material and send it your way to prove that they're being dishonest about the information. Simple. Jesus Christ, Logan, hire me as your manager. Jesus. Could have saved you a massive fucking headache if this is all fake. How can you be so dumb?
Amen. Jeff, Logan's manager, seems to be implying that I'm not allowed to review allegations his own development team made, even though Logan can go on podcasts and publicly accuse those developers of stealing his code. Not only that, he's the one who refuses to provide any evidence, but seems to sort of be implying that maybe we'll sue you if you tell this to anyone, which he then denies doing when I ask him if that's what he said.
told you I have no comment to it. I'm telling you once again, from a legal standpoint, you have to report truth. If you do not
Is this an
verify
NPC?
truth,
Why does he keep saying this?
Then you're just allegations, and those then will be handled the way that we want to handle it.
Okay. I understand you may have graduated Arizona State with a business degree, but holy shit, that is not being put to good use here, Jeff. You must have fallen ass backwards in this position. He is calling you so that way you can defend against the allegations. You don't have to do it right now on the phone call. Just say they're not true, and we will defend them. And here's our evidence. We can eventually get you our evidence. It is that simple. Like, it is that fucking simple. How dumb is this guy? Like, oh my god. He is calling you because he is trying to verify it as a trustworthy source. He wants the whole story. And how the fuck else is he supposed to verify it without talking to you? The team. The people behind it. The ones who now have the allegations. You are the only ones that can verify the authenticity of the claims. He can't go to the Better Business Bureau, who's somehow going to be having all the fucking answers to this. This guy is so dumb. He is so unbelievably dumb. And then making that, like, a sly little threat about it. He's Logan Paul's actual punching bag. He has to just keep Jeff around just to take all of the flack. That's gotta be the only reason. He's like a little public spittoon for Logan Paul. Oh, what? No, I would have absolutely denied these things. Oh, that's just Jeff. Jeff, he's so fucking dumb. Yeah, no, oh my god, I can't believe Jeff. What a silly guy.
I have no comment on the situation.
Good defense.
Your job legally is to report facts. If you don't report facts on the information you're given, it is illegal.
It's not. You can report allegations. That's the whole fucking point of an allegation. He's not saying it's the truth. He's saying they're allegations, and he wants to verify, are these allegations accurate or are they inaccurate? You can absolutely talk about allegations.
Who is he? Who is Eddie Ibanez?
It's a made-up name. That's a made-up
Yes,
name,
hi,
isn't
my
it?
name's Eddie Ibanez, lead developer here at CryptoZoo.
Oh, never mind. Damn, I thought it was gonna be a crazy plot twist.
Is fake. Wait, what?
It's a made-up name. That's a made-up
Yes,
name,
hi,
isn't
my
it?
name's Eddie Ibanez, lead developer here at CryptoZoo.
Oh,
This
never mind.
reporter says
Damn, I
Eddie's
thought it was gonna be a
entire
crazy
story
plot twist.
Is fake. Wait, what?
CryptoZoo.co. I am so excited about this project. It's so fun. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
A fun game that earns you money?
How much did you guys make from CryptoZoo?
I lost around $50,000 in CryptoZoo.
I lost $40,000.
I lost around $15,000.
I lost $25,000.
$120,000.
$500,000 Australian, which was $500,000 in CryptoZoo.
Shut up! No, you haven't.
Yeah, 500K.
Today, we're investigating Logan Paul's CryptoZoo, a blockchain game that made millions but never worked. Some of you guys think you know the story, but it goes so much deeper. I've uncovered sociopaths, billionaires, fake orphans. Did I mention fake orphans? And of course, at the center of it, we have Logan Paul himself, who has abandoned this thing, leaving thousands of fake orphans in his wake. Wait a second. Thousands of victims in his wake. Now, you'll be hearing from some of those people because their stories are heartbreaking. This is the first in a 3-part series that's been a year in the making. And if you like high-effort investigations like this one, please consider supporting this channel on Patreon. I don't take sponsors. We are viewer-supported, so if you want to and are able to, thank you. Either way, enjoy the video.
For the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project. We have a massive team behind it and are probably out of pocket like $1 million just because we believe it's going to work. September 1st, CryptoZoo.co.
We don't scam. I've never scammed anyone before. Logan cares extremely deeply about his audience, loves his brand, doesn't have to scam to make money.
Welcome to part 1, the $1 million mystery that began this whole story. Like many people, I first heard about CryptoZoo from a podcast Logan runs called Impulsive, which was the experience of a lot of people that I spoke to.
So I first heard about it on the Logan Paul podcast.
Impulsive, I think.
It was off one of the Impulsive episodes.
The thing that I'm most excited for, and this is the first time I've ever said anything about this, for the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project. I think there needs to be a fresh take, and this project that I have is that fresh take.
Now look, at first, I was just as surprised at this pitch as anyone else because I just got finished roasting Logan for a different coin called Dink Doink, which his fans lost money on.
I'm a Dink Doink fan. It's the dumbest I've ever seen. That's why I'm all in.
It's comedic. It's fun. It's comedy.
Now look, I know Logan and his friends tried to make it look like Dink Doink was all about memes, but it turns out they secretly were tied to the project, and Logan created the Dink Doink character himself and subsequently abandoned that project. So if you invested in it, you got blasted, and Logan rightfully took a lot of heat for Dink Doink, which is why I was surprised when he seemingly immediately jumped into another crypto project. But Logan insisted CryptoZoo, it was different. It wasn't his friend's project this time, it was his. And it wasn't even a project at all. It was a game that could earn you money.
I'm excited to launch again.
You keep using and you just did it again. You keep using a word there. Game. You're not using like a project. It's a game.
It's a game. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
Now you might be wondering, how is it possible to earn money from a game? Well, let me try to break it down. This is how it was supposed to work. You started by buying this crypto token called Zoo, which is their in-game currency, and you use Zoo coins to then buy egg NFTs, which you can then hatch to become animals. You then can breed those two animals to become hybrid animals. For example, if you breed a gorilla and a kitten, you get a Gorkin. And the more rare the NFT, the higher the daily yield of Zoo tokens that animal earns you every day. Theoretically, it works like passive income. You can then burn your animal NFTs to release the Zoo they earned back to you, and from there you can invest it into eggs or just cash out. Now, some of you of the Egyptian persuasion might notice some triangular qualities to this game description. But let's not be too quick to judge, because remember, there are a lot of NFT games built to this model. It's called play to earn. Now, Logan admits that there are other games like his, but what's going to really make his stand out is that other games have randomly generated assets. His game has handmade art.
It's quick to make a digital asset with, unique, randomly generated characteristics.
We handmade art for the past 6 months, bro. Approval, very specific notes, 10 different artists making art for our project.
Now, I'll admit, this all sounds very enticing. handmade art, a fun game that can earn you money, and one of the biggest influencers in the world backing it. You might think, how can I lose? Which is why when people were told all you had to do to play was buy an egg, people spent millions. Just on the first launch between East and Zoo, people bought $2.5 million worth of eggs in the first day. And did I mention the game hadn't even been launched yet? All people were buying was the marketing and the promises. And it wasn't just the NFTs they bought either. The Zoo token also skyrocketed in value, reaching a $2 billion market cap pre-game launch, right? The trading volume was in the tens of millions of dollars per day, which kind of is like Fortnite not coming out, but people trading tens of millions of dollars in V-Bucks every day. That's what this was like. And I know it sounds stupid to buy an influencer project, but you have to understand, people saw Logan as different.
It was Logan Paul at the end of the day. An internet personality that I actually trusted, that I actually kind of believed in.
Obviously, when someone so influential releases something, everyone wants to be a part of it.
I still believe in this false fantasy that everyone else started believing, that Logan Paul's a changed man.
I thought it was a safe place having a guy like that identified, like Logan Paul being the head of the project.
They had seen this story he had been telling everyone, that he was this reformed influencer, right? That he was no longer a reckless clout goblin just in it for the money. They thought this time it's different. Logan Paul couldn't hide the scams, right? But as the game got closer to release, the CryptoZoo team started releasing the first ever photos of these gamers. And come to find out, this handmade art story wasn't really true. It was actually Adobe stock photos mashed together. This was the sort of first red flag of this project. And I made a video about it at the time, but it was kind of surface level, and something didn't add up beneath the surface. Something where I just couldn't shut this case down in my head. It was actually part of the announcement video that something they said. See if you can spot it.
We have a massive team behind it and are probably out of pocket like $1 million just because we believe it's gonna work.
On development.
Yeah.
That's the line that started this whole mystery. We spent $1 million on development. I couldn't get this out of my head. No, is he lying? There's no way he expects people to believe he spent it on art. So wait, maybe he spent it on blockchain stuff, right? That's what I thought. But then I audited the smart contract, and it's not handmade at all. It's not even original. It's what's called a fork, a copy of, some other code that exists out there. One of them is called Floki Shib X, which launched before it. So where did this $1 million go? I didn't understand. And Logan just kept repeating this claim.
We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. Personally, the whole team, $1 million plus.
Now, at the time I'm looking into this, there's a teaser going around for Hatch Day, which is the day you can hatch your egg NFTs. And it kind of symbolized the true launch of crypto. So I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where they spent all the money on their game. Even their community manager, Ben Roth, promised people after Hatch Day, things will take a turn for the 180. So I put Ben Roth on the board too. I needed to know all the characters in CryptoZoo. And I waited. And finally, on November 3rd, 2021, Ben Roth turned out to be right. Things did take a turn on Hatch Day, only for the worse. Let's meet one of the victims, Helicopter Bob, to explain this.
My name is Rob. Helicopter Bob lost just under $7,000 with CryptoZoo.
And the first thing I asked Bob was about his animals. If he was making money with CryptoZoo, how much he made, if the passive deal worked.
Oh, it never did from the beginning. It wasn't even written into the contract where it showed that you were actually yielding yield, but there was nothing that was actually backing that up. There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Wait. Play that again. Did you hear that?
There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Hold on. The core mechanic of CryptoZoo, that you can make money with these stupid animals, didn't even work on launch day. And still, to this day, a year later, still does not work, is what the investors are saying. Which, this is just crazy. People spent millions of dollars on these eggs. But it even gets worse because I kept talking to people and I discovered something. Because remember I told you you could buy eggs with those Zoo coins? Well, apparently they also made it so you could buy them with Ethereum. And on the day of selling, about half of these purchases took place with Ethereum. Only it turns out for the people who spent ETH, not only did the yield part of it not work, did the NFTs not pay you, you also couldn't even hatch them.
So I acquired a bunch of eggs, and I actually want to play the game. I didn't acquire the eggs with the intent of keeping them. I actually wanted to hatch them and see what I get out of them and play in this ecosystem that's been advertised or whatever, right? And then I can't do anything. It's not showing up on the website when I check my wallet, etc., etc. So I'm a little baffled. I'm like, I must be doing something wrong. So I open up a support ticket. I open up a support ticket with CryptoZoo, and Ben Roth is actually the person answering my support ticket. Oh yeah, no, it's down for the moment, but we're working on it. Let me tell you, it's never been up.
Wait, you can't even hatch?
No, I'm telling you, it's just a picture. There's nothing I can do with it.
You're kidding! You can't hatch?
There's nothing I can do with it. You could ask any of those community guys. It's basically worth nothing whatsoever.
Wow, so on launch day, basically nothing worked, and a year later, that's still true. Now, after this was discovered, the price of Zoo fell 63% in just 24 hours. And at this point, Logan Paul basically decided on no more podcast mentions, no more saying he handmade art. CryptoZoo already got millions in investments, but Logan only speaks in the Discord twice over the next year to say, quote, sober, currently shaking my head, and yo. That was his contribution to this project. Meanwhile, his community manager, Ben Roth, was actively claiming that Logan was going to be marketing CryptoZoo any day now. He told people things like, Logan is an uncontrollable marketing guru. It's over when we launch. And when we have a product to market, it'll get marketed. And marketing will crush. I promise you. And this disconnect between Logan abandoning the project and his team on CryptoZoo saying that it was going to be any day now, left investors feeling like they were being led on.
All he had to do was go on and tell us, look, there's something going on with this project, I'm abandoning it, or whatever, before people got more and more track. And promising, yeah, this is going to be great, but when it came to actually doing anything, you just hid away from it.
Have some decency, come out, talk to the people that invested initially, that invested along the way on all of the fake and false promises, and all of the false hype, and be honest with them.
Surely Logan Paul, who's got this $1 billion hydration company and WWE star, is got enough money, doesn't need to look as lot.
It's because of these false promises about marketing that these poor investors believed in CryptoZoo so long. They sat and watched every Logan Paul episode trying to guess and decipher when this so-called marketing push would happen. Logan and his team really fed into this with a lot of cryptic messages. Only a month after CryptoZoo's launch, actually, at Hatch Day, they started tweeting this.
Not too much of this is out, but he's been working on a massive project.
And one of them will be the biggest thing I ever do. It'll be like my life and soul put into this project, which is where most of my time these days goes.
Wow, surely this secret project that Logan put his soul into is CryptoZoo, right? You know, the project he launched a month ago? Well, his fans certainly thought so.
I'm like, holy cow, it makes so much sense. He's talking about CryptoZoo. Ben and the dudes are like putting smiley faces and egging the rest of the community. Like, this is it, guys. You know, this is what we've been working towards. I mean, this is it. This it's finally happening. Logan's gonna market the project, and they kept saying that Logan's gonna market the project, and it's gonna change everything.
So now imagine their surprise when another clip surfaces of Logan finally admitting this secret project isn't CryptoZoo at all. It's something else entirely.
I'll tell you about this project when we get closer to launch. This project line is
Is that the thing with the eggs or like the zoo?
No. Okay, this one's gonna be good, yeah. This will be crazy if it's ever done.
Oh man, can you imagine if you're one of these investors and Logan Paul's going pitching this new secret project and you're thinking it's CryptoZoo and someone's like, oh, is it that thing with the eggs? And he's like, no, definitely not. That was the last project. This is the real project that I'm working on. Thankfully, people didn't just let this slide, because as he went around making rounds on his new project called 99 Originals, people were like, hey, didn't you just abandon your last one? Unsurprisingly, it's not his fault. It's the bad actors who ruined the project.
As I see people giving multiple explanations for why these haven't worked, and you know there's accusations out there. How does it make you feel when people are doing these takedown videos about your NFT projects previously?
It's sad because of what I just said. There's so much going on behind the scenes. Like, Doug, I'm not the bad guy here.
Yeah.
There's some actual out there.
Yeah.
And it's not me. Like, I'm here to build.
This is a space where a lot of people do see dollar signs. Like any burgeoning industry, if there's money to be made, there's people, good and bad people.
There's a lot of shady characters in the crypto space. I'm learning all of it. We had an issue with CryptoZoo, where our lead developer took the code that he made, fled to Switzerland, actually fled to Switzerland, and like held it hostage for $1 million. Like behind the scenes drama that took a stick and stuck it in the spokes of my wheels.
Oh, well, that wasn't expected. There's a shady developer who held up Logan's code hostage in Switzerland. That's why this hasn't worked the whole time. He held it hostage for $1 million. Well, let's add that to the board. I mean, isn't the mystery solved? Now, obviously, the first thing I wanted to do was hunt down this developer, who we'll be calling Z here, and find out the truth of what happened. Why did he steal Logan's code for $1 million? However, I finally got a hold of him, and when I did, he admitted he took the code hostage, but he says the reason for it was nothing like what Logan had said.
He never did anything at all. I never admitted. And it got to the point when I was working on it where I just realized they were going to try to control all of my work on me. So I just all the source code sites. And I kind of, like I said, like a hostage trade negotiating and get something figured out where everyone I can pay it. Because like on my end, I have 30 engineers. I'm earning $50,000 each on building this thing. And the only thing they brought to the table for us was Photoshop JPEG.
So Z claims he wasn't blackmailing anyone. He had to hire a team to develop this whole thing, and he just wanted to be paid for the work they did. According to him, they negotiated a $1 million payday for this whole project. And from the second I heard that, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because Logan claims he spent $1 million on this whole thing. This developer saying he's owed $1 million on this project. Now, I didn't want to just take one person's word for it, so I later confirmed with another developer who worked for something called the Blockchain Center that he also hadn't been paid.
We've been paid nothing. I would have loved to have Zoo, but I don't have any.
So that's multiple sources working on the CryptoZoo 2 project who were not paid. Now, obviously, these are big accusations, which is why I wanted to confront Logan Paul on it. But unfortunately, we're not exactly on speaking terms. So I wondered, how could I speak to Logan without speaking to him? That's when I found out there was someone who might know just as much about this story.
And I will explain everything one day with my manager, who's like in charge now.
Logan Paul's manager, a guy named Jeff Levin. He might be just what we need to settle this whole thing. So I gave him a call.
Hello?
Hey, Jeff. Hey, sorry to bother you. This is Steven with CoffeeZilla. I'm calling because I've heard reports that CryptoZoo hasn't paid their development team, and I'm just reaching out for comments before I do this story. I got your number from one of the development team, and they just wanted to, I just want to follow up on that.
I have no comment for it.
Okay, are you guys denying it, or are you saying it's not true?
No comment. I don't think that the information is true.
Okay, because they're saying $1 million hasn't been paid in development for CryptoZoo, and Logan Paul said publicly that it has been paid. So, I mean, it's a pretty serious accusation, and obviously, I don't want to just run a story if you guys have a whole side to your story here.
Your job as someone that is reporting news is to actually verify correct news.
Right, that's why I'm calling you.
I know, and that's legal grounds for that stuff. So I'm just telling you, legally, you have to report correct news with verifiable information.
Right, that's why I'm calling you. They've given me a lot of things. A lot of evidence.
Okay, well, okay. You can have the evidence you want, but I'm just letting you know, if you report anything on us, I appreciate your business. I appreciate you as a person, and I'm just telling you, from legal standpoint, as we've been advised always, is if anybody reports fake news, that's where we won't,
Yeah, this call was a mess. Jeff, Logan's manager, seems to be implying that I'm not allowed to repeat allegations his own development team made, even though Logan can go on podcasts and publicly accuse those developers of stealing his code. Not only that, he's the one who refuses to provide any evidence, but seems to sort of be implying that maybe we'll sue you if you tell this to anyone, which he then denies doing when I ask him if that's what he's doing.
Told you I have no comment to it. Telling you once again, from a legal standpoint, you have to report truth. If you do not verify truth, then you're just allegations, and those then will be handled the way that we want to handle them.
Wait, so you're saying you refuse
no
to give me
comment.
proof
I
that
have
the
no
allegations aren't true, but if I report on the
I have no
allegations, you guys might sue.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that.
All
I
right,
said, once again,
I'm trying to read between
no
the
comments.
lines.
Don't read between the lines.
Okay,
Listen to
okay.
the exact words that I'm saying.
Okay,
Listen to the exact words I'm saying.
I'm listening.
I have no comment on the situation.
Okay.
Your job legally is to report facts. If you don't report facts on the information you're given, it is illegal.
Yes, that was a real conversation with a real person. Now, I'm no lawyer, but I don't think it's a crime to say that multiple developers say they haven't been paid, and Logan's team refuses to provide any evidence or statements or wire transfers that they have. Which, by the way, seems incredibly ironic, given just how much Logan whines about not being paid by Floyd Mayweather.
Where's my money, bitch? Floyd never paid me for our fight. Who am I, the IRS?
Nope, but you might be the CryptoZoo dev team. Now, in all seriousness, I do want to acknowledge something which actually kind of looks bad a bit on the developers, because it turns out very few written contracts were actually done. So much of this were verbal deals, like, oh, we'll take care of you, we'll give you $350K, we'll give you $1 million, we'll give you whatever. But then when it was time to actually sign the deals, there's just always delays.
What kind of promises were made to you? Verbal promises, basically. So verbal promises, and then we follow up with a physical paper agreement. But that's when communication broke down.
This is where I think the dev guys screwed up and led to this whole situation of okay, we're just going to take the code private until you pay us for our work. And to be clear, I'm not justifying not paying someone for what they did. I'm just playing devil's advocate and saying this could have all been avoided by just getting every detail in writing. And I think it's just a good general lesson. But if you're thinking that that's the $1 million mystery solved, well, no, because this still doesn't make sense. Why not just pay the dev team what you publicly said you kind of already paid them? Why not pay for a game that now isn't launched and now investors are so angry about? Why not pay when you already made millions from minting the egg on this game? Well, this is where things get even stranger, because right when I was ready to pin everything on Logan, and believe me, he is at fault, I was speaking to the Z developer, and I heard a name that I hadn't heard before.
I basically came in with Eddie promised me 5% of and $1 billion. He never paid me.
Wait a second. Who's Eddie? I thought that all of this was Logan Paul. I only put it together when the Blockchain Center guys also said a similar thing about their deal. They said they were promised $350K, and it was Ibanez. They say they had no communications with Logan. But we know they weren't talking about different people. They both dealt with the same guy. So the guy's name, I put it together, must be Eddie Ibanez. Turns out he was managing the developer. What's this random guy doing in Logan Paul's project? And who is Eddie Ibanez?
Yes, hi, my name's Eddie Ibanez, the developer here at CryptoZoo.
This reporter says Eddie's entire story is fake.
Wait, what?
To continuously lie, lead people on, hype people up, to put more money in, all the while in the background, things are going down, things are hitting the fan, and you've left us holding the bag.
Logan, you stole 40 million in tokens from him. You are a scam artist. You are a liar, and you betrayed your own community. You aren't that guy. Logan replies, oh, trust me, bro. I am.
For the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project. CryptoZoo.co. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
I lost around $50,000 in crypto.
I lost $40,000.
$500,000 Australian.
I'm telling you, just a picture. There's nothing I could do with it.
Wait, you can't even hatch?
No.
We had an issue with CryptoZoo, where our lead developer took the code that he made, fled to Switzerland, actually fled to Switzerland, and like held it hostage for $1 million.
He never gave me anything at all, ever. And he promised me, 5% of doses and $1 million. He never gave me.
Wait a second. Who's Eddie? I thought that all of this was Logan Paul. What's this random guy doing in Logan Paul's project? And who is Eddie Ibanez? To begin answering the question of who Eddie is, I decided to take a deep dive. I started by looking through all the news articles I could on Eddie, where I found out he graduated from MIT, and from there became a data scientist and cybersecurity expert, and used that technical background to win a Super Bowl for the Eagles. And there were videos on him too, which all painted him as brilliant and extremely accomplished.
Yes, hi, my name's Eddie Ibanez. I'm the father of 3, lead developer here at CryptoZoo.
As a teenager, he successfully hacked AOL from his bedroom. He continued to pursue computer science until attending MIT. He was then recruited out to work for a government agency in cybersecurity, developing software that reverse engineers the location of known government and terrorist threats.
You started with the federal government, and you started off really tracking criminals with burner phones and all.
Honestly, after this whole search, I felt more confused than ever. If Eddie's such an amazing guy, why didn't he pay developers? And is he really the puppet master behind CryptoZoo? Or is it someone else? Honestly, I felt like at this point I needed a drink and I needed to ask for help.
Coffee, how's it going?
Not good.
What happened?
I'm confused about this Eddie Ibanez guy. He comes out of nowhere with this CryptoZoo story, and everything about him I find seems great.
So, what's the problem?
Well, everything's not great. Everything about this guy just seems too perfect. He's an MIT grad, he works for the military. He even claims he won a Super Bowl. Why would that guy work for Logan Paul?
I don't know. But I can find out. You said his name is Eddie Ibanez?
I think he goes by Eduardo technically, but wait, what are you doing?
Just looking around. And done.
Well, what'd you find?
A few red flags, a couple of misdemeanors, a few court cases. I'll send him over. He got sued by his landlord for not paying rent, sued by his credit card company for not paying his bill.
You can skip that stuff. I just need whatever's relevant to CryptoZoo.
Well, that's basically it. Other than... hold on. No, wait, I did find something. Look at this.
What's this?
It's from a paper in Philly. I barely picked it up. This reporter says Eddie's entire story is fake.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the whole Eddie Ibanez character. This guy Adam Robb investigated it. He says it's a lie.
I gotta find this guy. Send me his info. I got some calls to make.
Coffee!
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We met up with Adam Robb, the reporter who's been investigating Eddie Ibanez for a while now. And I wanted to know, what did Adam think of him when they first met?
I wasn't quite sure what to make of him. Based on what I knew about him, he was a MIT grad who went on to work for the CIA and Defense Department, and I didn't want to waste his time. And it wasn't long after I sat down that I realized he was wasting my time.
Can you tell me about some of the lies Eddie told you?
Eddie has told me so many lies over the course of my 2 interviews with him, and the first lie he told me is probably the oldest lie that he's told so many people, which is that he's an orphan. I first realized Eddie might be lying to me when I went home the next day and Googled Eddie Ibanez's family. I found a video of Eddie and his wife making rice pudding on a Fox and Friends segment on Fox News, and Eddie's wife Jackie explained that she learned the recipe from Eddie's mother.
So in that picture, you've got Jackie Ibanez. You know her, along with her husband Eddie and her 2 little girls. You love rice pudding. Why is this a family recipe?
Okay, so Eddie's mom made this rice pudding once.
Wait, Eddie's mom? I thought Eddie was an orphan. Oh, it turns out the only problem with that is that not only does his mom exist, she's alive and in his life. And it turns out it wasn't just Adam that heard this story either. He told it a lot.
Did you ever meet his mother or his parents?
I did meet his mother.
Did he ever tell you he was an orphan?
Yes.
How did he square that with you?
So that's why I'm so confused. He told me he was an orphan and all this stuff, but then I meet his mom.
He told me he was an orphan, and then I met his mother, is quite the string of words. But as insane as these lies are, let's be real, it doesn't explain why CryptoZoo failed. But the next lies kind of do, because part of Eddie's story is also that he went to MIT, where he was recruited to the CIA. And it's part of why he was so attractive as a lead developer, all the wild experiences that he had had. But it's just not true.
I emailed the MIT registrar's office and I asked if Eddie Ibanez attended the school, and they confirmed in absolute terms that he never attended MIT.
That's right, the whole orphan to MIT origin story, it wasn't true. And Eddie's whole backstory from here kind of falls apart as well. How could he have been recruited to a government agency out of MIT if he never went to MIT? If this is all seeming crazy to you, you might ask yourself, who would believe all this? And this is where Eddie shined. He kind of had a gift for getting people to believe in the lies he told. Especially super rich and powerful people for some reason. Like take for instance this story, him winning the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. He managed to convince the owner of the New York Yankees that it was true, Barry Klarberg, who completely bought into it without question and told the same story later in a college seminar.
Let's jump right into the work he did with the Philadelphia Eagles, which led to a Super Bowl championship, led to you getting a Super Bowl ring.
Yep.
Tell us exactly what your job was to do for them and how it worked out.
No, sure thing. So first off, they said like, we don't know where to put you, but and then the sports science guy was the one guy. He's like, hey, I got some data. I'm interested. So we took in his data, and we found out that these players, what happens is it's like a player as they run around, they get a certain fatigue level. So if you ever played Street Fighter, the video game, there's like a red bar at the top, and every time you get hit, that red bar goes down until you die. KO, right? So then we're trying to figure out kind of what that is for a player, and on an injury level, right? There's injury bar that gets knocked down and that gets KO'd.
This is insane. He convinced an owner of the Yankees that he won a Super Bowl by turning sports athletes into Street Fighter. And of course, none of it's true. The Philadelphia Eagles responded to a fact check saying he never worked for their player analysis team. Not only that, the Eagles also said that Eddie did try to do an in-person presentation in March of 2018, but that was already a month after the Eagles had already won the Super Bowl. And also they didn't hire him because of course not. Meaning there's no way this story is true. And yet he's convinced people at the highest levels of sports that it is. And this is where we get back to CryptoZoo, of course, because it's how he got involved with that project. Remember Jeff Levin, Logan's manager, who we spoke to last time? Well, he also spoke to Adam Robb. And when he told him the reasons he liked Eddie, they sounded very familiar.
And did he tell you, I guess, kind of like about like working at the NFL and that kind of stuff, and whole, like his time in the CIA and all that?
He did. And it was interesting. It was like, this is wild, you know, like, that's pretty cool. But he's, once again, he's humble and he's not like never bragging or anything like that.
Wait, but he is bragging. He literally made it all up. The CIA, NFL stories aren't true. How could that not be bragging? But that's the impression Eddie gave off. But that's not all. Because Eddie didn't just use made-up stories to get in with the CryptoZoo team. He also used his other connections. His real millionaire and billionaire friends that he's managed to gain with all these fake stories. And some of them vouched for him. People like Chris Birch and Todd Morley.
And what was the thing that kind of like sold you on Eddie? What was the fact with like Chris and Todd and people like that kind of like cut back from the past and like?
I just think he's a down-to-earth, cool, humble guy.
Okay.
Who's been super successful. They're trying to do with an agenda, and he's just kind of like, hey, look, I'm super smart at what I know, and I have amazing relationships through business that I've done.
It's incredible. I mean, how does this guy keep getting away with it? Honestly, it's baffling. But I've got to say, up till now, everyone's been fooled sort of fair and square on the same grounds. But I found out CryptoZoo did have an advantage that could have saved them all this trouble the whole time.
So a month before the launch of CryptoZoo, I got on the phone with Jeff Levin, Logan Paul's manager. And after he spoke fondly of Eddie and his work, I confronted him about some of Eddie's lies, including how he didn't work for the NFL. Jeff told me he doesn't know much about the NFL, but he knows about the business world. And Chris Birch and Todd Morley vouched for Eddie. And so Jeff and Logan were going to continue working with him. Have you ever verified that anything Eddie said about himself is true?
We verified that it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely talked to people.
Okay.
And his friends, you know, people that he said he has relationships with, which we've confirmed that for sure.
Okay, because I had trouble with some of that, like, with the NFL, like, saying that, like, no, we've never worked with him, and that kind of thing. But you've had...
The NFL saying that?
Yeah.
Like who in the NFL?
The comms teams for the Eagles and the Dolphins. And then the people specifically that he named that he said he worked with.
Got it. I don't know necessarily the football stuff.
Okay.
You know, I don't have relationships with the football world.
Sure.
But in the business world, you know, we've definitely, you know, talked to multiple people.
Like Todd and Chris, maybe.
Correct.
Wait, this means at minimum, Jeff knew about Eddie's background beforehand, or part of it, and still decided to go with it. This is just unbelievable, willful stupidity. And since Jeff is Logan's manager, I assume him and the team should have known about this as well. But still, they went forward with it even though they knew this stuff before launch. Now, I started to reach out for comments about this because obviously this is a huge deal. But when I did, I got a call from somebody new. Someone with a different perspective that I hadn't heard from before. Jake, the Crypto King. He's been involved with some of Logan's projects in the past, like Pokemon, for example. He was called the Collectibles Guru a few years ago. Nowadays, he goes by Crypto King, and he's an advisor for the Crypto Zoo project. So let's add him to the conspiracy board. But the question is, what did he have to say? I took a call with him, and he mostly wanted to talk off the record. But when I pressed him, he was willing to at least put one thing on the record for me. Right. One more thing about Eddie before we get off of him. We actually have...
The biggest reason it failed, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because I don't want it to ever be thought that Logan's the reason it failed. He's not. Logan wasn't smart enough for what he tried to build, and then when it was built and was failing, didn't have the ability to correct it and to save face and reputation. It was more convenient to pull out than to be associated with a failing project that the dev run. So I could put that one sentence on the record.
Well, that is certainly emphatic. Crypto King says it's all Eddie's fault. And this is a nice, neat theory for us. You know, Eddie ruined everything because, yeah, Eddie is a liar. So it does seem to explain how these developers got screwed. But this theory doesn't fit all the facts because Eddie was kicked off the team months ago. And still, the game is not working, despite Logan claiming they were going to go back and fix all the problems.
Again, retroactively working to make these projects right, and it just takes time, bro. It just takes time. Development takes time.
Working backwards to fix things, which isn't ideal, but also this project will speak for itself.
And now, you know, we're working backwards to try to fix it.
This just hasn't happened. Even a year from launch, the game just doesn't exist. What's worse is the newest dev team who came on after Eddie just quit. And one of their reasons was they hadn't been paid for over a month. I know this because Logan's team is leakier than the Titanic and someone told me that, but we also have blockchain evidence. This is Jeff paying BlockOps, the company they hired out on July 19th. They were supposed to redo all this work. It's confirmed by their leader, Skip, talking about a first monthly payment on that day. But after that, there's nothing until they quit on September 26th in a post called Our Departure from CryptoZoo. Now, I do have to say, it does look like they were eventually paid, but only a day after they quit. And this is just the same problem as before, slightly different. Nobody can pay these devs on time, and investors end up getting nothing. And so I can't buy into the idea that Eddie's at fault for everything, because when Eddie was gone, they had a lot of the same problems. Now, it was only at the point that this dev team quit, BlockOps, that things really took a turn. Because if the Titanic was leaking before, now it was sinking, and everyone basically gave up hope. You know, from every direction, I started getting messages from all the investors who felt betrayed, who up to this point were holding on to hope. Now they felt defeated. They felt tricked by the CryptoZoo team who had fed them promise after promise, and they were sick of it.
He was never in the chat or anything, never apologized, told us anything.
Things didn't work out. We all get that. but to continuously lie, lead people on, hype people up, to put more money in, all the while in the background, things are going down, things are hitting the fan, and left us holding the bag.
I know it was my decision, and I did my research, but I believe nobody has to lose money in this way.
And that's when a whistleblower stepped forward and decided enough was enough. They decided to leak me messages, team messages, from the CryptoZoo team from all the way back in the beginning when they thought of this idea, all the way up to launch. And seeing that, it changed everything. Because all of a sudden, I got a lot of new information. Remember how Jake, the Crypto King, said Eddie was the only problem? Well, a year ago, he was saying something very different. On the day of launch, he said this to the group. Logan, you stole 40 million in tokens from me. You are a scam artist. You are a liar, and you betrayed your own community. You aren't that guy. Logan replies, oh, Jake, trust me, bro. I am that guy.
Story. Yeah, I'll go on the record for you, and yes, I'm going to show you the text message that say we can sell at these ascending market caps, and that it's not like I was trying to run a project. It's like I put $250,000 into a project plus 6 months of time, and the founder never did anything he said he was going to do, and then hired a bunch of devs that didn't do what they were going to do, and every time I gave advice, the advice was I was so there was nothing illegal about that. Ethically, arguable. The rest that Logan did to me was ethically wrong and illegal.
For the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project.
We put hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. Personally, the whole team, $1 million plus.
We had an issue with CryptoZoo, where our lead developer took the code that he made, fled to Switzerland, and like held it hostage for $1 million.
He never paid me anything at all, ever. And he promised me, 5% of tokens and $1 million. He never paid me.
This reporter says Eddie's entire story is fake.
Liam.
The biggest reason it failed, in my opinion.
Doug, I'm not the bad guy here.
Yeah.
There's some actual out there.
Yeah.
And it's not me. Like, I'm here to build.
Welcome to part 3. So far, we've discovered fake orphans, millions of dollars stolen, and a cast of sleazy characters, but now it's time to put it all together. What is the truth? And who's to blame? We're going to start by going through leaked text messages of the CryptoZoo team to understand all of their motivation. Then we'll go to blockchain evidence and show who sold what. And finally, we'll confront some of the people responsible. But before we can do any of that, we have to start in March of 2021, 6 months before the token even launched. Our 4 suspects, Logan, Crypto King, Eddie, and Jeff, are in a group chat discussing CryptoZoo, which starts as a copy of something else. Quote, I like imitating CryptoKitties, Jake the Crypto King said. Logan replies, I agree. And initially, it wasn't called CryptoZoo at all. It was called Crypto Pets, and they were going to sell a Pets token. And pretty early on, it became clear this was all about money, how they were going to sell this thing to investors. In fact, Crypto King said he thought it was worth at least $20 million in only 6 months, saying the range is insane. $20 to $210 million. It's beautiful wherever we land. Eddie jumped in at this point and talked about how he could sell the project as an investment to a friend, Matt Higgins, saying, quote, he has to spend that $350 million somewhere. Why not us? And Logan says, I love that idea. Crypto King, I'm in. And of course, you have Jeff saying, let's go. So you can see right there, they wanted to sell this game before it had even launched. Now later, Eddie amends the list of investors and says, quote, investors will be Gary Vee, Todd Morley, James Altucher, Ryan Kavanaugh, and others confirmed on my end. Supposedly, they had $100 million of investing interest. Now, I actually went to some of these investors and asked if this was true, and the one person who responded denied it, Ryan Kavanaugh. Quote, nope, not even a little bit. So this looks like it could be yet another lie from Eddie Ibanez, but either way, it looks like there was more issues than just finding investors because the team wanted to pre-sell tokens, and not everyone was sure it would be legal. Jake the Crypto King mentions that, quote, if we have a pre-sale, it opens us up to SEC issues. And Jeff agrees and says, don't want to do anything that brings the SEC eyeballs. Now, not everyone wanted to be so cautious, though. Logan argues everyone does pre-sale with coins. Eddie agrees. He says, you absolutely can do it. I have the SEC down, private and pre-sale. And honestly, it was quite the dilemma for this team who wanted money. Do a pre-sale, make millions, but you have these potential legal issues. Don't do it, you make less money. So Crypto King comes up with a middle solution. He says, if we can't sell, no pre-sale, we can still trade them in the liquidity pool. And this is the start of a new disaster, which takes a bit of explaining. Now, just so we're clear, a pre-sale is where you sell investors coins, usually at a discount, before you've launched. And then when you launch, you give them those coins. Now, like I said, the team didn't want to do that. So what they did instead was they bought the tokens on the open market right after launch. But they tried to get clever with it because they didn't actually announce that they were launching this coin at all. They stealth launched it on June 11th and didn't announce this token through Logan until August 18th, meaning they had all that time to silently buy up as much of the supply at a steep discount as they wanted. And the idea here was that doing this, the team could get these tokens extremely cheaply, which is kind of like a pre-sale, but without all the SEC troubles. And Crypto King makes this clear on June 7th when he says, quote, launch of the liquidity pool is where huge money will be made because you get in cheaper. And then says, we, the team, begin buying out the liquidity pool. Once the team has exhausted funds for the liquidity pool buying, we send the contract address to friends, family, investors who want to be able to get in. So obviously the plan is we buy first, then we give it to our close friends and family, and then maybe the public eventually, right? And even the day before, Crypto King reminds everyone, quote, Zoo Day is tomorrow. I highly recommend everyone get a few $100 to a few $1,000 in Zoo when it goes live. It will likely 10 to 1,000x. So that was their plan. Rather than doing a pre-sale, they were going to do this stealth launch and hopefully get tokens cheaply the same way, but without all the legal troubles. Or at least that was the plan. Because on stealth launch day, this is where things first started to go wrong for the team. At first, everything seemed to go normal. The team sat in a circle and literally bought it out as planned. But the next day, Crypto King says something odd. Quote, a bot is playing with our tokens. Kind of cool to watch them work. But he doesn't mention who this bot is. And he also says the asshole finished selling, but doesn't mention who that is. Now, Jeff, Logan's manager, replies upset. He says, how do we prevent someone doing what they just did again? We went from $130 million to $26 million market cap in 2 hours. It's not cool to watch. Logan jumps in. Yeah, wait, how did that happen? And he also says, what asshole? How did anyone get this token except for us and none of us sold? And I think actually this is incredibly suspicious because the implication of what Logan's saying is, hey, we tried to scheme this really well. We tried to all buy this without letting anyone know. How did anyone else figure out we were buying it, right? And this is where a fight ensues that's going to become really interesting. Crypto King deflects the question by saying, my buyer pushed it back up to $40 million. And Logan says, no, bro, F your buyer. Explain to me what just happened and how there were 30 token holders. And Jake tries to explain that this was just traders and bots happening to find the token. But Logan says only 5 of us knew about it. Jake says, well, many people chase volume and new tokens. And to some extent, he's kind of right. But Logan replies, cap. He doesn't believe it. Quote, I can't be the only one who thinks that's too incredibly convenient. Like someone was tipped off. And look, no one's more critical of Logan than me. But as I'm reading these texts, I was kind of like agreeing. Like, yeah, it does seem too nonchalant when somebody's ruining your secret plot. You know what I mean? Because Crypto King was acting very strange. He says, we created $40 million out of thin air. This is a success. Logan replies, this nonchalance worries me. F 40 million. It was at 120 million, which again, it's all about the money with these guys. But truth be told, I did agree that Crypto King's attitude seemed strange in these texts. I mean, he's not wrong that bots are a thing. Traders are a thing. But it sounded like he didn't want anyone to look into it. So, naturally, I looked into it. And what I found, because there were bots, but there's also unusual human activity during this time. So I tracked the 5 biggest buyers of the Zoo coin. And lo and behold, this is what I found. Logan was one of the biggest buyers, which is what you'd expect. But he wasn't the biggest. In fact, two of the biggest wallets seem to be associated with Crypto King himself. And here's where I paused. I said, wait a second. Why did this guy buy more Zoo tokens than Logan when this is mostly Logan's project? I thought Crypto King was a small part of this team. And so to get more info on this, I actually got access to an internal meeting note from the day of June 11th, which they called Zoo Day. And in it, we find actually some interesting information. We see that 5 founders bought in. They apparently were, quote, trading in circles until each person maxed out. But on the list of buyers and how much they spent are only 4 people, when we know 5 people bought. We have Danny, Logan's assistant, for 20K, Logan Paul for 100K, Jeff at 100K, and Eddie at 100K, but Crypto King is nowhere to be found. And yet, on the blockchain, I have him putting in $200,000 worth. And this number, by the way, seemingly is confirmed in a conversation I had with Crypto King, where he said, my 200K investment. And the reason this is important is because it does imply that something shady was going on the day of the stealth launch. Because Crypto King had a relatively small role in this whole project. He was the advisor, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Like you can see from the internal meeting notes, they have a breakdown of who's getting what in terms of founder tokens. And like Logan Paul's getting 51%, Eddie's getting 30%, Jeff's getting 10%. Jake's only getting 5% of tokens, but he has the most of these like stealth launch tokens, which makes no sense. And it got me thinking that maybe what explains this suspicious behavior around like, oh, don't worry about who was buying at the time of the launch. Maybe that's explained because perhaps no one knew that he was buying up large parts of the token supply. Maybe he was buying it to sell later. Now, of course, that's speculation. So that's why I confronted Crypto King on all of this. But before we get to that call, let's address the elephant in the room. Logan didn't accuse Crypto King of being a scam. It was the other way around. Crypto King told Logan Paul he was a scammer. And the question is, why? Well, to answer that, we have to go from June, the stealth launch date, to September 1st, the official launch date of CryptoZoo.
September 1st, CryptoZoo.co.
Now, the day of the launch was a bit strange because you might think, well, they already have a token, right? But the first thing they did was actually create a new Zoo token with a different code, but the same name. And they actually airdropped all the holders of the first Zoo token with an identical amount of those coins on the second Zoo token. So you might be wondering, why did they do that? Well, maybe it's to change the smart contract, but maybe it's because of what they did do. They blacklisted some of the holders. In other words, they didn't airdrop to everyone, including Jake the Crypto King. They excluded his wallets so it couldn't get these Zoo coins. Jake texts the group about this the next day, saying, quote, the Zoo team made a major error this weekend. They chose not to communicate, mint a new token, and airdrop it to whatever wallets they determined fit. This decision came from Eddie and Logan, and I had no part in it. 11,250 wallets before the airdrop, under 11,000 after. They chose to blacklist and ban over 200 wallets. Now, who those wallets are, I have no idea. But he continues, quote, as a founder like Logan, Jeff, Eddie, and Danny, I had purchased a large quantity of tokens. 5+ of my wallets had been blacklisted from the original team's buys. Now, I don't know why he had 5+ wallets there, but okay. He says 80+ billion Zoo tokens were confiscated from me today without any communication. So, wow. That's why Crypto King accused Logan of stealing from him or scamming. It's because he was frozen out of a lot of his wallets. And then we get to the text you guys all know. He says, Logan, you stole $40 million. You're a scammer. You're a con artist, all that stuff. You betrayed your community. The reality is you aren't that guy. And Logan responds, oh, Jake, trust me, bro. I am that guy. Q, in the arms of an angel. And look, I mean, what do we make of this? Well, I don't know. I can't root for either of these guys because it sounds like Logan stabbed him in the back, but it sounds like Crypto King may have stabbed him in the back in the first place, right? Because it does appear like he bought tokens that maybe everyone didn't know about. So I'm really not a fan of anyone in this situation. And by the way, this whole thing was structured so misleadingly from the beginning. I have to talk to you a bit about it because you might think that these tokens were the only tokens they had, but it's not even true. In the distribution section of Zoo's white paper, they say there's 2 trillion tokens, and a quarter of that are allocated to development, marketing, and founders. Those aren't even the tokens we're talking about right now, because they claim that those tokens were locked up for 6 months And then afterwards, 10% was unlocked every month. And if that's true, there would be no reason for these funds to be blacklisted, right? Why would you blacklist something that would be locked up? And the answer is because, well, the founders had more than one set of tokens. Not only did they supposedly have these founder tokens that were locked up and couldn't be sold, these stealth launch tokens were different from that. It's like a whole different thing. And the tokens that they bought, that all of these guys bought, they could sell at basically any time because they weren't locked up, which is a massive problem. And this fact was explicitly laid out in their meeting notes with only one rule. They say, quote, no selling until $200 million market cap, and don't impact the market more than 3%, and not impact the market more than 10% in a day. And by the way, this is basically conspiracy to manipulate a market. You know, they're literally having insider rules for how to sell, but we're gonna look past that, right? Because these rules eventually kind of changed. A text from Logan's manager, Jeff Levin, came to the group chat, Zoo Founders, saying, guys, new and absolute rules. No one is to sell or transfer any zoo. Logan's gonna make the call when we can make moves. And Logan replies, your tokens do not leave your wallet. This is a game. Now, that all sounds well and good. Don't sell your tokens, but the reality was, I mean, they're just kind of trusting each other because these tokens that they're talking about, they're unlocked. They're not locked up, and they could sell it at any time. And I guess the question on my mind is that why Crypto King's tokens were blacklisted? Because they thought he would sell? Or maybe it's just the fact they found out he bought and they didn't know about all of it. It's honestly hard to say without knowing more evidence. And this is where we're going to jump into the blockchain. Now, I've tracked the wallets of the entire market and identified the largest seller of Zoo in the team. And it wasn't Jeff. It wasn't Danny. It wasn't even Logan. It was other people. Crypto King sold, by my calculations, millions of dollars. And I know what you're thinking. How's that possible, right? I thought his tokens were blacklisted the day of the official launch. How could he sell that much? Well, the answer is that not all of his tokens were blacklisted. He had even more tokens behind the scenes. And what's worse, the CryptoZoo team actually gave him back a lot of his blacklisted tokens, which I guess you can see as a good thing or a bad thing because he then turned around and sold those tokens, right? And from my blockchain analysis across his blacklisted tokens he got back and the tokens that he had squirreled away the whole time, he ended up making $6 million. He did this by sending out tokens from these larger wallets to dozens of smaller wallets, selling it, and then sending the money to final cash out wallets. So I used those final wallets to calculate the amount he made. Now, I know, look, it's a lot to accuse someone of selling $6 million in a project that doesn't even work. It's a giant scam. So I wanted to give him a chance to defend himself. So I got on a call with Crypto King. Here's what he said when I finally revealed that I knew he had sold.
It's going to change the whole fucking story. Yeah, I'll go on the record for you, and yes, I'm going to show you the text message that say we can sell at these ascending market caps, and literally, I'm going to 100%. It sounds like your biggest issue with me is that I sold. And if that's your biggest issue with me, that's the truth.
Wow, that is a big admission. Selling tokens for a project that you're an advisor on when the project has never been delivered. Although, Crypto King insists that it wasn't $6 million, and he wasn't trying to rug a project. In fact, really, he might be the one who got screwed over in all of this.
Like, I didn't sell $6 million worth. That's going to be other wallets, but that's probably not going to be me being able to be proven, except for them saying, can you send BNB to all these different wallets for me? Which then I'll be able to show you that I was giving BNB to the whole team. I will also be able to show you that I was a 5% holder of the Zoo tokens that I was promised to be given over the 3-month period, was never given. I can also show you that I was frozen out and was never given the 15 billion tokens back that I paid for in cash.
Okay.
I'll show you all of those things on the record, and then you can also say that I did sell, which is also true.
Yep.
As long as it's accompanied with, he was a founder that was supposed to be given 5% of the project and was never given the token or paid, worked for almost a year on the project. As long as that goes in with it, then at least that tells my side of the story so people understand that it's not like I was trying to run a project. It's like I put $250,000 into a project plus 6 months of time, and the founder never did anything he said he was going to do, and then hired a bunch of devs that didn't do what they were going to do. And every time I gave advice, the advice was I was looking for a call. So it can be that story, or it can be he sold all this amount and he got in early. Well, yeah, that's like 1% of it, though.
Incredible. He sounds like he views himself as the victim, or at least like he got screwed too, which just has to win the gold medal for me for mental gymnastics, because, I mean, he literally had put $200,000 into this, and he says he made millions of dollars. Even if you take him at his word that he didn't make the full $6 million, he admits to me later that it might be a pretty close guess. He tells me via text, quote, "I don't care if you tell people I sold a few million and leave it at that." Well, okay, $6 million, a few million dollars, it's millions of dollars, right? Millions of dollars when you only put in $200,000 into a project that's never been delivered, doesn't work, scammed people out of their money. How is he saying he's the one who's in the wrong? Well, in his view, what he did was not wrong. It might have been arguably unethical, but it wasn't illegal. And what Logan did, well, that was illegal.
You can say the timing was bad and it was inappropriate to sell, but the reality is I bought tokens open market and sold them open market. So there was nothing illegal about that. Ethically, arguable. The rest that Logan did to me was ethically wrong and illegal.
Now, what do I think of all this finger pointing? Well, I think it's pretty wild to try to make yourself look like the lesser of two evils when you made millions of dollars and investors lost millions. I just do. Now, at the same time, I want to be fair to Crypto King. He's not the only one who sold here. But I also have to say, not everyone from the founders did sell. For example, Jeff, Logan's manager, to my knowledge, never sold. Neither did Logan Paul, which was a huge surprise. All their wallets that I tracked, held on to their tokens, which is good, and to their credit for a game that doesn't work. But you know who did sell? Eddie Ibanez. The guy who didn't pay the initial devs, the supposed MIT orphan? Yeah, from what I could see, his initial wallet got a ton of zoo, sent it to a bunch of smaller wallets, and then sold off, kind of like Crypto King. And for my calculations, he made about $1.7 million. Now, I have to tell you that like Jake, I tried to confront him and give him the opportunity to defend himself, but he never replied to my emails or my phone calls, and we're just gonna have to leave it there. But we're not done with the money just yet, because we still need to talk about the eggs. Remember, we talked about how they profited from ZooCoin, but they also made millions from eggs. According to their own internal meeting notes, they plan to make about $3 million selling these eggs for 0.1 ETH a piece. And that's not far from what I calculated they actually did make, which was about $2.5 million. In the meeting notes, they say they're gonna clear expenses and then do payouts. But payout who? They don't say. And these expenses are referencing an earlier note suggesting Eddie and Logan had both spent $300,000 each, which I'll say is not $1 million, but okay, we'll give it to them, right? So they got paid back their $600,000, but where does the rest of the money go? Well, on the Ethereum side, there's one payout for $364,000 to one wallet, and another $1 million to another. Both are Coinbase addresses, so we don't know who exactly that is, but clearly someone on the team made a lot of money from these NFT egg sales that do not work. And on the Binance Smart Chain side, where they also made money selling eggs, the zoo that was spent was supposed to be set aside for 50% to be burned, which they did, but the other 50% was supposed to be allocated for wildlife charities in crypto zoo development. Now, neither seems to have happened because all the money is in a wallet that the team still controls. So there are open questions about, where that money is going to go and where the Ethereum money went. Did it go to Jake? Did it go to Logan? Did it go to Jeff? Did it go to Eddie? We don't know. But what I know for sure is that no one was innocent, although there are certainly shades of guilt you can argue about because, of course, not everyone did sell. You could look at that as the most important thing. Logan Paul didn't sell. Jeff, Logan's manager, didn't sell. But does that make them innocent? Well, I don't think so because they never built a game they promised people. Logan Paul specifically got millions of dollars spent on this game on the promise of the technology that he never built, that his team never built. And he never addressed the failure except to blame his developers who weren't paid. And you could say he promised to work backwards to fix it, but then never did. But at the same time, it's clearly not just Logan's fault either because there are major team issues, right? You've got Eddie selling millions of dollars of zoo and then allegedly not paying developers. You've got Jeff, who was warned about Eddie, who kept him on the team anyways. And then after they fired Eddie, seems to also have failed to pay developers on time. And then you've got Crypto King himself, who sold the most, but claims he was the guy who was scammed. which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's just like Avengers Assemble for the worst possible team you can imagine to build a crypto game. And so, unsurprisingly, it turns out a lot of these guys backstabbed each other. And so, finding a way to wrap this up was difficult because it's hard to assign exact proportions of blame. Because if you focus on any one person, you kind of miss why this project failed. CryptoZoo, at the end of the day, did not fail because the price went too low. CryptoZoo failed because they never built a functioning game that they promised. Really, the number one problem, even bigger than people selling millions of dollars of tokens, was that they never paid the developers on time, as boring as that is. And as a result, the investors not only got rugged for millions of dollars, which is a problem, but they just didn't get the core thing they had bought from the beginning, which was not a crypto project, but something different.
I'm excited to launch my game.
You keep using and you just did it again, you keep using a word there. Game. You're not using like a project. It's a game.
It's a game. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
That's it. That, to me, is the biggest scam in all of this. Yes, it's a huge problem. People stole millions of dollars. But it's a symptom of the larger issue, which is people didn't actually care about the game or this, whatever you want to call it. They just cared about the money. And this is ultimately what happens when you have an influencer LARPing as a businessman. It's what happens when you have a liar LARPing as a developer. And it's what happens when you have a shady crypto guru LARPing as a crypto king. You end up with a mess. And in my personal opinion, a fraud as well. And now that this thing blew up in their faces, these four seem to be dodging accountability faster than SBF dodges calls with them. Because I have reached out to everyone involved, tried to get all of their statements on things. So far, no one has taken accountability or offered to refund the victims at all. They're all hiding, pretending these victims don't even exist. But they do exist. And throughout my investigations, they've been the heartbeat of this whole thing. So I decided to close this investigations in a bit of a unique way. Rather than me deciding who's to blame or me deciding what you should think, I want to give them the last word.
Everyone's to blame. Logan, in the sense of his poor management, is his project. He still made these promises to people.
I think everyone it is to blame, including Logan Paul, of course, because he was the one in charge of this, and he was responsible for all of this mess.
Everybody has a big part and a massive cross to bear.
Each one of them scammed the project in their own way, and then off to the sunset they went.
It was his job to check the team to make sure that everyone is working together, to make sure that he is giving the funds of the people that put it into his project under his name to people that he actually trusts. So in my opinion, if the team failed to perform, that's Logan Paul to blame.
The community is destroyed. People is angry. They just want their money back. They just want their normal lives back.
Reimburse those loyal fans that they have, or how to rebuild the project, actually deliver on the project for those who are still holding their eggs, like I am, for those holding the Zoo coins. So maybe they could just deliver what they promised, and that would give some redemption to this fiasco.
He's not said a word. That's as bad, almost as bad as taking the money. It's the not coming out and just being a man about it.
At least we deserve to know what was happening behind the scenes while we were waiting for almost a year and a half. The fact that we're hearing this information not from Logan Paul but from pretty much an investigator, it really says a lot.
What did this loss mean to me? It meant a lot. Not just personally, because I lost quite a lot of money. My kid and also my wife were invested. It was like telling a kid that Santa doesn't exist or something like that, because she really believed in all that game. She really believed in Logan Paul. Kids look up to that kind of people. So it was some kind of broken dream.
My mum was invested. My sister was also invested. So, I mean, my daughter even had a couple of the eggs and animals, which the loss for them hurts the most, because obviously it's just not nice to see.
For somebody to win, somebody has to lose. That's a gamble you take, whether you get into crypto or not. I got in knowing that I could lose, which is fine. That's on me. But I thought if I lost something, it would be because I sold at the wrong time, or the game didn't earn as much as I thought it would, and therefore my things weren't as valuable. But you never go into it thinking it's not something that they're going to just sell out from underneath you, because they could make so much more if they actually delivered on what they said, even if they delivered on close to what they said. And that's the thing, is you don't think they're going to rug you because there was so much money in a game wallet.
Ultimately, at the end, the way I see it is it was fraud. Logan could have put out the red flags, told people to stop investing more into it, because people were investing into this project until the very last minute, where the ship was still just sinking down the ocean, and people were still putting their cash into it.
If I was on a call with Logan Paul, I would ask him, where did his redemption arc go? I think he was on such a good streak going about his YouTube career and boxing as well, and it's sad to see that because of money, once again, we have degraded down to stealing from his viewers.
What would I say to Logan Paul and his team if I could? Well, actually, I could, because I have an NFT from other project that gives me the right to see Logan Paul, to meet and greet with him, and I will actually use that right to tell him this story again, show him this video in front of me, and see how he reacts when he sees that my family, my whole family and my kid are affected with this situation, because I think that's not human.
You would think that Logan would have told his fellow followers, his loyal fans, that, hey guys, back off, red flag, things are there's turbulence in the water. No, not a single word, nothing whatsoever.
To market products at children, and knowing full well that his team is made up of people that he believes are shady characters, yeah, he still goes on Forbes interviews and says the game is great for kids. It's gonna be amazing.
Who loves it most? The kids. Their kids love it.
Our developers' kids, all of them, cannot stop playing the game.
I think that is inhumane the way that side of it's been marketed.
Knowing what's happened since, knowing that all of the people that were there from the beginning, like all of the guys that I'd speak to on a daily basis, that we've all just got nothing now. Ideally, I just want to say I'll see you in court.
This is Vault.
We're live.
All right, awesome. So we're officially live. Thank you for that, David. Thank you, Jordan Peterson, for coming back for this. I think this is 4th or 5th time us having you on. How are things?
Strange.
Strange?
But good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I started my tour about 10 days ago. I saw Joe Rogan first, and that was really good. Seemed to provoke a lot of outrage in the predictable places. And
we need more of that.
We're gonna get more. So I don't think we're gonna have to wish for that. That's just gonna happen. And then I've done 7 tour lectures so far, and an average audience size of about 2,500, and they're going great. They're unbelievably positive. Almost everybody dresses up, which I think is really cool.
Really?
Yeah. Well, when I went on tour in 2018. Before I went out, I thought I wanted to do this 100% right, or at least as close to that as I could manage. So I went out and bought some expensive suits. I spent way more money on. This is one of them, actually.
You look great, by the way.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you. Way more money than I ever thought I'd spend on clothes, and I really felt quite bad about it. You know, I thought maybe it was an extravagance, but I thought, no way, man, I'm going to see if I can nail this dead on. And I'm going to be speaking to 100,000 people. I'm going to look as sharp as I possibly can. And one of the consequences of that has been that young men in particular come to the lecture tour dressed up in suits, three-piece suits. Or the couples come and they're dressed up like they're coming to a wedding. So that's really something. And
Why do you think that is? Is it because you set that
they're
standard?
sick acting like kids.
Okay.
You know, our whole culture pushes the idea that teenage life, or even childhood for that matter, but teenage life is some sort of pinnacle, and then everybody dresses down so they look, especially men, they look like overgrown 10-year-olds, and there's something extremely demeaning about that. And so to provide people with the opportunity to dress up in a classic manner and to look like adults, to present themselves in that manner, there's something very attractive about that, because we haven't done that in our culture. That's been, I would say, downplayed in importance or certainly since the 1960s.
Who's to blame for that? Because you recall, anytime you would fly in an airplane, if you see old school pictures, people would dress in three-piece suits to go on an airplane. This is in the 60s, I assume. And then now you see someone like Mark Zuckerberg wear a T-shirt to give a speech in front of a TED Talk or something like that. So
Well,
who's
some
to
of
blame
it,
for this dress
some
down?
of it's just fashion. You know, I mean, fashion moves around, and it usually drifts from the top down. And so when formality becomes the norm, but that drifts down, say, to the working class, then the upper class thinks, well, we can't do that because that would, associate us with the unfashionable people, and then they dress down. And so then that drifts down the hierarchy. And so there's some of it's just fashion, but a lot of it too is this idea that this sort of reflexive, rebellious attitude that anything that violates traditional norms, or even anything that's associated with patriarchal oppression and adulthood, is to be eliminated in favor of what's hypothetically a more free individuality, but it's not, because everybody looks the same. I was in Washington 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer than that. It's probably longer than that, when I first went in the summer. And one of the things that really struck me, all these people wandering around these great monuments, is all the men looked like overgrown 10-year-olds. They looked exactly like their kids, except they were bigger. They looked like they'd been inflated with a bicycle pump. And I thought, this is weird that adults are dressing like children, and not good. And so some of it's fashion, but some of it's also that.
Is it exclusive in America? How about in Canada? What have you seen all over the world with this?
No, I don't think it's exclusive to America. I think it was more noticeable to me in Washington, and I think that's when it really hit me, because Washington is, in some sense, a place of pilgrimage, and people from every class go there, and that's a good thing, and they should, from every economic class. And so it was like it was a real cross section of the total population, and that was one of the things that struck me quite bluntly. And so, anyways, it's very nice to see all these people dressed up. And
when you hear the argument being made, it's the following argument. The argument is, look, you only have so much energy to make so many decisions throughout your day. Do you want to be in front of the closet in the morning, picking and choosing what suit I'm going to wear to tie with what shirt and what tie? You know what? I'd much rather not consume my energy thinking about what outfit to put together. It's a lot easier to just have a white shirt, jeans, regular tennis shoes, and go to work, and let me make the bigger decisions while I'm running the company. I've never felt bad not wearing a suit. Every time I've had a suit on, I felt better than just walking over with a t-shirt on, even though the t-shirt is a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier, even when you were in the military. It felt good having your greens on, having your BDU on. There was something very attractive about having a suit on. Not for the audience, just even for yourself. Mm-hmm. You felt good having a uniform on. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I talked to my father about this years ago, because he always wore a suit when he was a teacher. He's still alive. He's a teacher, and he always wore a suit. And I asked him why one day, and he said because it was his way of showing respect for the students. And I mean, I'm not saying that everyone who doesn't dress in a suit is being disrespectful, but there's something about outfitting yourself for the task at hand. And there's also something about attempting to put some effort into putting your best foot forward. And I don't really buy that it takes more time in the morning argument. It takes a bit more time, but once you, before I went on this tour, I went through all my clothing and I lost how everything would fit. And which included a number of suits that were old, and I had to organize them. And that took about a day to get my closet in order. But then from then on, it was actually a pleasure in some sense.
Do you do it yourself?
Do I do?
Meaning, like, you go through your closet, you do it yourself. Like, Pat has a very unique way of, like, you don't pack anymore, Pat, do you? Like, you have someone kind of help you out with that.
Packing is not my strength. I have a lot. That's one of my weaknesses.
No, I still did that for the tour because I had to figure out what I was going to wear. But I've had people help me make clothing decisions, let's say. Now, that's often people who would like to make suits for me. So I have that as an advantage. But I did that pretty much on my own. And anyway, we were talking about the tour. It's going extremely well, and so people come and they're dressed up and they look good. Not everybody dresses up, but everybody looks pretty good. And
I like that. I like when you go into a room and people are dressed up. By the way, just for the audience, just so you know what topics we'd like to cover with you today. Number one, we'd like to cover what a fantastic job your leader is doing, Trudeau, and I know you're a big fan of his. We'll cover him a little bit with the truckers and what they got going on up there in Canada. Two, we'll talk about what happened with Whoopi Goldberg. I'm curious to know what your thoughts on what should happen to her with the comments she made about the Holocaust. Some of the stuff that's going on right now with John Hopkins today, report came out talking about how great of an idea was the shutdown, and no one's talking about it. They said it was only 2% effective. Love to get your thoughts on that. Some issues with the governor who came out with what they're doing was transgenderism, Governor Noem, on the fairness bill. I'd be curious to know what you have to say about that, and a few other topics that we got going on that's more on the personal side. When does divorce make sense? That's a question Adam's really curious about. And then some other questions. So today, do you still live in Canada today? Are you still full-time living in Canada right now?
Insofar as I live anywhere full-time, it's in Canada. I have a house in Toronto, and we bought a new place about 3 hours north of Toronto on the lake, which we spent a lot of time in over
Lake
the last
Muskoka?
6 months. Very close to there.
No,
Yes,
I know
that
well.
area. That
it's
area.
awesome up there.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful up there, and so that's been real nice. My daughter moved to Nashville partly to escape from the COVID restrictions and for other reasons as well, because Nashville has a really burgeoning creative culture, and it's a very cool place.
Great
And,
city.
Yeah, it's a great
Very
city.
good city.
And real estate still is relatively inexpensive, certainly by Toronto standards. So, yes,
why are you still in Canada? Why are you still living in Canada?
Well, I'm living in Toronto because my son and his wife and their son live on the same street that we lived on. They purchased a house 4 years ago. I think it was 4 years ago, and that was before. I assumed that I would be in Toronto for the rest of my life because I assumed I would work at the University of Toronto and continue doing what I was doing until I was like 90 because I really liked doing it. And there was just no reason to assume. And I had a clinical practice, which I also really liked. And so that was pretty good life. And I assumed we were there permanently. And my son liked Toronto, and so he picked up a house and they live there. And so, but that's really the reason I'm still in Toronto. And how that'll play out over time, I don't really know. So,
Because, I mean, I'm sure you're seeing everybody that's moving. You know, you got Joe, who went from California to Austin. You saw Shapiro, whose company is in Nashville, but he's living here in Boca, right? You're seeing Ruben, who I think just moved in to, I want to say Miami, right? You got
Elon
you
Musk.
got Musk goes to Austin. You got your daughter who went to Nashville, right? You got all these people that are looking at, you know, Nashville, Florida, Texas. It seems like those three states tend to make people the most comfortable, and they're all red state. What needs to happen for Jordan Peterson to say, I'm kind of leaving Canada to go to a different state? Would anything happen that would cause you to leave that place?
well, I don't think, as long as my son's there, I don't think so, because that's a big advantage to being there. But we're doing so much traveling, my wife and I, that in some sense, we don't live anywhere. You know, I mean, we were 2 weeks in the UK, and then a week in Washington, and now we've been on the road. We're going to be on the road pretty much nonstop till March of 2023, because the tour ends in the States at the end of April. We'll hit 40 cities, and then Canada, assuming that's possible, but it looks like it probably will be, and then the UK and Europe. We're going to be back in Canada for 2 months in the summer, and then down to New Zealand and Australia and Southeast Asia. And then I'm going to Cambridge, I believe, in January to do a seminar on Exodus, which is what I wanted to do at Cambridge multiple years ago before they canceled me, and that's all being sorted out. And so it looks like there's a very high probability that that will occur. And then that's really as far out as we've looked. So that'd be March of 2023. And God only knows what shape the world's going to be in at that point. There's hardly any sense in planning out past that because everything is in such flux. There's no predicting the future.
I asked a question for the following reason. So, there are certain people who do a lot of work behind closed doors, but nobody knows it. There's a lot of smart people that are very intellectual, great teachers, great students, loyalty, a ton of strong philosophies, who maybe would make a great leader, but we don't know them, right? And very few, it's very, very few, 0.1% all of a sudden, boom, overnight the world knows who they are, and they're enamored by this person. You're one of them. It's kind of what happened to you. Overnight, who's Jordan Peterson? Well, the people who are in Toronto would know who Jordan Peterson is. Professor, teacher, clinical. I think you said you had 20 patients or 20 families that you were working on. I think that was the number. So it's not like it's in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Overnight, the world's addicted to Jordan Peterson. Who is this guy? And then you have your moment with the lady that's pushing you feminist, and then that goes off, and wow, this man's deep. Then you write the book, sells millions on top of millions of copies. So then money's being generated, money's coming in, then everybody else comes and hey, speaking this, speaking that, and that adds up. That starts getting a lot of money. And then you had your moment where I remember when I interviewed you on stage. That event was a very special event because it was you, and then I had also George Bush I interviewed at that event, as well as Kobe Bryant, if you remember that event. That was one event, 6,000 people, and you got emotional on stage when we talked about your wife and your daughter. And I walked off the stage, and I said, I think he's dealing with something. I don't know what it is. I'm talking to my wife. I said, I think this guy's dealing with something. And that was your last live event that you did. And you kind of went hiatus and, the whole thing that you were dealing with the medication and all that stuff. But then I kind of sit and I think about, a Jordan Peterson. Okay, so he makes a comeback. When you go to a dark place and you come back, I would assume you may sit there and say, stuff that I thought I valued, it's not really that valuable. I value this though. And maybe you used to value it at 82%, now it's 90%, And stuff they used to value at 48%, they give energy to because other people care, you're down to 22%. I really don't give a shit about this. I don't know why I'm even putting so much time into it, right? And then you come out. And when you come out, you're kind of like looking around saying, God, why did I go through this? What was this all about? This was kind of strange. So then I see someone like you. Yesterday I posted something saying, look, this whole thing with Spotify and Rogan, I'm sure we'll get into and we'll talk about it because I'd be curious on what you have to say about that. I really want to know your thoughts. I said, in a very strange way, I would love Spotify to drop Rogan. And we're talking, I said, why? Why would you want Spotify to drop Rogan? I said, because the first phone call Rogan would get is from Elon Musk. And Elon Musk would say, hey, don't worry about it. Let's go compete. I'm going to start something. You be the face. Let's get a bunch of podcasters, come with us, and let's go do something. So I put this video out there, and I got commentary people that are posting stuff. One guy said, that's just not Rogan. Rogan's not trying to be a hero. He's not trying to be a legend. He's not trying to be that. And I said, well, if you read the journey of a hero as he fights it, until eventually it's kind of like, listen, man, I know you don't want to do this. It's kind of like, you could really address a lot of things. And you're the right guy for, I don't want to do it. We see this in movies all the time. It's a constant fight. I asked a question with you in Canada because, who gets more eyeballs in Canada than you? I don't know. And is Canada in a pretty strange place right now with the way Trudeau's handled things? We're used to talk about freedom and we can't ever make people do anything to their bodies that they don't want to do. And all it's okay, this guy makes sense. Boom. No, if we have to choose between delivering food and delivering this, we're going to choose this because you're like, this guy sounds like a dictator. Okay? Is there any aspiration where in a moment like this, with all of these weird things taking place worldwide, where maybe you've sat down behind closed doors with your family, with somebody and have said, Dad, Jordan, why don't you go in there and see if you can be the leader of a great country like Canada and do something about it? Has that conversation ever taken place at this phase of your life?
Yes.
And?
Well, I've thought about a political career at different points throughout my life, starting when I was 14. In fact, that's what I thought I would do when I was 14. I worked for the Party of Canada, it's a socialist party, as it turns out. And I had that option open to me when I was very young, but I figured out when I was about 16 that I didn't really know anything. And so I had ideas, and I was capable of functioning in the realm of ideas and putting them forth, even then, I would say, in a somewhat compelling manner. But I figured out, partly because I had worked with a lot of small business people, and also on the board of governors of this little college I went to. These are all people who built businesses from the bottom up. They were all immigrants, because everybody in Northern Alberta was an immigrant. And they didn't share my left-wing presuppositions, but they were very admirable people. And part of what made them admirable to me wasn't their facility with ideological conceptions. So it wasn't an intellectual attraction, it was a practical attraction. I'd worked in restaurants in this little town I grew up in, Fairview. And I liked working with the guys that built the restaurant. And I talked to them one day about the Socialist Party in Canada, and Alberta at that time had a pretty good small business platform, probably better than the Conservatives had in terms of what it would do for small businesses. And I asked them one day, why aren't you in favor of this small business platform? Because they wouldn't vote for the NDP, the Socialist Party, to save their lives. They said, well, we don't want to be small business people. We want to be big business people. And so I learned then that people, well, the guy I worked with, his name was Scotty Kyle, and Scotty was a rough guy. He was about 35. I was about 15 at that time. And Scotty had been an alcoholic, and he had like all his teeth knocked out in fights, and like he was a rough guy. But he was super funny, and he was really smart. And he said to me one day, people don't vote their reality, they vote their dreams. And I thought, hey man, that's a good phrase. You know, that stuck in my mind for the rest of my life. And so in any case, when I went to college, I went to take political science and literature, and I wanted to go into law school. I wrote the LSAT, and I was set to go to law school. I wanted to take corporate law, and the reason that I wanted to do that was to understand my enemy. That was the idea. And
who was your enemy at that point?
Well, I was still when I went. Yeah, the big corporations, essentially, big corporations. You know.
Yeah. Wow.
But I realized about a year into my college education, for a variety of reasons, that partly reading George Orwell, but that wasn't all of it. That I also didn't like. I went to a lot of the NDP party, and it's New Democratic Party. It's not the NDP party. New Democratic Party conventions, provincially and nationally, and I had access to the leadership for a variety of reasons. And a lot of the leaders were reasonably admirable people, or maybe even completely admirable people, who had worked with labor unions, and like they were advocates for the working class in a real sense. But the party level activists, I never liked them from the beginning. I thought, I don't trust you guys. You just seem to be driven by resentment, not genuine care for the working class. And so that didn't sit well with me. In any case, I started to get interested in psychological motivations for political behavior, especially as I went through my political science degree, because there was an increasing emphasis as we moved away from the classics, which is what I studied in the first couple of years, to more modern political thinking, let's say. It was all quasi-Marxist in that the political scientists believed intrinsically that people were only motivated by economic concerns. And I just never believed that. I thought, that's which economic concerns and why? Well, those questions weren't asked by political scientists. They took economic determinism as a starting point, and that never sat well with me. I thought there was a mystery there because it wasn't obvious to me what motivated people, and we're not ruled by our bellies as far as I'm concerned. So the idea of pure economic determinism was a non-starter, and that's really when I started to get interested in psychology. And I've made a choice all the way through my life. The choice has always been, say, political, sociological versus psychological, or perhaps spiritual, and I've always chosen the psychological work at the level of the individual. And I don't think I'm going to stop doing that. I mean, I have had discussions, serious discussions with people about a political career. And first of all, in my current situation, it isn't obvious to me at all that that wouldn't be less effective than what I'm already doing. You know, so
that wouldn't be less effective
it'd be
than
less
what you're already
effective.
doing.
Yes, it would be less effective for me to.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
I know what you mean by that, but what do you mean by that? I mean, you mean to tell me you're having the same amount of impact now as you would as the PM?
No, I think more.
You
by
would
a
have
lot.
more
Right now, you're having more impact?
Yeah. Yeah, look, those are hard jobs, and and you get boxed in very quickly, and they're also brutal jobs, and it isn't obvious to me that I have the stomach for it. I don't really like fights. In fact, I don't like them at all. Part of the reason that I said what I said back in 2016 when I first stood up and voiced opposition to what the universities were doing and also what my government was doing was because I could see where that was going. I could see that it was going to generate conflict of all sorts. I knew, for example, that all this pronoun foolishness was going to confuse thousands, particularly of young women, because there's a very large clinical history of that sort of thing happening for 350 years. So that's detailed in a book called The History of the Unconscious, which is a great book by a man named Henry Ellenberger, who wrote the best book on the history of psychoanalytic thinking. And so I knew that. In any case, part of the reason I spoke up, and this was a hallmark of my clinical practice and also of the manner in which my family was organized, is like, we're going to have that fight right now. And we're going to make peace, because I don't want to have this fight every day for the rest of my life. And so it's going to be a pain to fight through it, because it's always a pain to fight through a conflict. But if you can fight through it, you can make peace, and then you don't have the conflict. And I really don't like conflict. So I don't like it deferred, because I know what happens if conflict is deferred. You get weaker because you back off, and the conflict gets more intense because its tentacles grow, in a sense. It's like not paying a utility bill. It's like, for the first month, it's not that big a problem. But
I don't know. I'm trying to think, to say that you think you're making a bigger impact right now than being a PM. I have a hard time with that. Let me unpack my question and challenge me on this.
Sure.
So okay. So let's just say, who is Jimmy Fallon? He is hey, I'd like to be like a Johnny Carson, hypothetically. Like that's the Fallon Carson, right? Who is, I don't know, Tucker Carlson. Maybe he's trying to be a O'Reilly, or maybe whoever it is that the lineage that you're going through, right? Okay, who's this latest person trying to have a show? She's trying to be the next Oprah Winfrey, right? Who would you say what Jordan Peterson is doing in history? Who would you have been in the 16th or whatever the century we go to? Who is Jordan Peterson? Like, if you were to give a 100 years from now, what are people going to say who Jordan Peterson was? They're not going to say, oh, he was a professor. Oh, he was a clinical psychologist. Oh, he was an author. I don't think they're going to say that. What do you think people are going to correlate you to 100 years from now?
I really have no idea.
So let's just say, is it like a philosopher, Plato? Would you say you're more of a philosopher? Would you say you're more like an Aristotle? Do you see yourself more as that? Do you see yourself as, look, I'm just somebody that's sharing my thoughts and my life experiences, and it's impacting people's life?
I'm a clinical psychologist.
Okay, so that's kind of how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lineage of great clinical psychologists. I'm not saying that I'm in that lineage, but I would say that people who are the most similar to me are people like, well, Carl Rogers might be an example.
Okay.
I mean, he didn't have the same social media platform,
Sure.
but of course no one did. But that's how I see myself intellectually, really as a psychologist, as a clinical psychologist.
Okay.
And I think that the work I'm doing on my lecture tour is a hybrid of being a professor and being a clinical psychologist.
But is it fair to say that's who you were, but you've evolved into something way bigger than just being a clinical psychologist? I think that's what Pat's kind of getting at. I mean, he's comparing you to an Aristotle of some capacity.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because my focus is still on the individual, even when I'm lecturing in front of large audiences. And I don't exactly lecture. I explore ideas in front of audiences, which is what Rogan does. And I do that even when it's a monologue. You know, and you think, well, how can you be exploring ideas with the audience when it's a monologue? And the answer is, well, you're attending to the audience. You're watching them to see if they understand and if they're nodding and what they're responding to. Like, there's a dynamism about it, but it's all focused on the individual. And there's been some unbelievably influential clinical psychologists or psychiatrists. I mean, Freud was unbelievably influential, and so was Carl Jung, and there's a half dozen of them or so. And so I see that I'm in that tradition. Now, the fact that this information now can be disseminated in audio form and video form makes the playing field radically different. And so I was also a very early adopter of those technologies. So when I blew up, let's say, it happened overnight. It's not exactly like, because most of these things don't happen exactly
takes 20
overnight.
years to blow
well,
up.
Yeah,
I get that
well,
concept.
the first doublings are invisible, right?
Yeah, but
And-
that live outside of the university.
Yeah, well, that was the-
that's. Listen, everybody's like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
He's right. He makes sense. So that was a concept
yeah.
of.
Sure, there was a tipping point there. That was when there was a free speech rally outside my office at the University of Toronto. It wasn't organized by me, but I was invited to speak, as was anyone who wanted to speak, by the way, at that event. And then a bunch of radical types tried to shut it down with white noise, and they were very annoying. And some of them were clearly psychopathic. Some of the people, I watched them because I have a pretty good eye for that. And some of the men that came out, they were bad actors. In any case, I got shanghaied on the way back into my office by these hypothetically trans activists, mostly young people.
What do you mean shanghaied?
Well, they just surrounded me.
Got it.
You know, that's all I mean.
Ganged up on.
Well, kind of. They were disrespectful, which I wasn't very thrilled about because I think that it's not a good. Students, if students are being disrespectful to professors, something's wrong. That's not what happens at a university. I had no tolerance for that in my classes. If you were out of line, you were more than welcome to leave now. And that didn't mean you couldn't challenge me intellectually. That was absolutely fine. If you had a smart question, you were paying attention. I didn't care what your opinion was, but you know, maybe when you're a junior high teacher or an elementary school teacher, you have to put up with misbehavior.
Not
As
college.
a professor, I put up with like zero misbehavior. No misbehavior. We're adults. We're not doing that at all.
Did you set the tone for that day one in the first class? Like,
absolutely.
this is how I roll.
Yeah, I never had trouble with students in my classes. Well, a handful of students would pretty much always leave the first lecture I gave, particularly my personality class, because a lot of them didn't know who I was. In my smaller classes, people already knew who I was, so that never happened. But in my personality class, there'd always be 6 or 7 people in the first lecture who'd make a show of leaving. And it was because of the tone I set, which was, don't muck about in this class at all. You're here to listen or not. You can leave if you don't want to listen, but this is a serious endeavor. Any case, these students surrounded me, and they filmed it, and then they put it online. And the object was to discredit me, but that didn't work. But the reason it didn't work, in part, and this is why this wasn't only overnight, was I already had 100 hours of lectures on YouTube. And I basically recorded everything I ever said to students in any professional capacity. And what I said in my classes was exactly the same as what I said when I wasn't in my classes. So there's no show there. And so people came to look to see what was going on. They came to my YouTube channel. And it had like 35,000, 50,000 subscribers at that point, which wasn't none, especially that early on in YouTube development. And they found out that what I was saying was not only completely unlike what I was accused of saying, but it was exactly the opposite, partly because, you know, I was accused of being this radical right-wing figure. And I'd lectured about the evils of National Socialism at Harvard and at the University of Toronto for like 20 years. So the idea that I was somehow radically right-wing was not only a lie. There's lies where you bend the truth, right? That's one kind of lie.
I think what those lectures did is a way for people to not be able to taint your name by saying, I actually like what this guy has to say. 35,000 subscribers is not a lot of subscribers.
No.
But this